Want you punished? Let's see if we can get in this late. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Welcome to a meeting of the North Penn School District Board of School Directors, June 8th, 1999. Tonight we will have a special action meeting before our regularly scheduled work session. We will also be presenting proclamations to outstanding students. The meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and intending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to no more than 5 minutes. This limit will permit time for all of those who wish to speak to the board to do so, and whenever members of the audience exceed this time limit, the board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker, and this is in reference to board policy 8344.2. Okay. Mrs. Donaher, would you lead us in a pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mrs. Lana Donaher, thank you very much. Good to have you with us tonight. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a special time for proclamations. Mrs. Linda Hubler? She did?
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes.
I have 3 students here tonight from Pembroke Middle School who are going to receive proclamations for excellence in participation in the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science State Meeting held at Penn State the weekend of May 16, 17, and 18. The PGAS encourages students to go on to do further studies in science, encourages creative thinking, and also encourages communication. Each of these students did a project for me, involved research, and it also involved a speaking component where they had to present their project to a jury of judges, both high school teachers and people from Penn State University, and also in front of a group of about 10 to 12 of their peers. So at this time I would like to present Melissa Ames, who did a study on the effect of the amount of fertilizer on plant growth. Next, I'd like to present Ashley Erickson. Ashley's project involved testing the durability of different modeling compounds. And I'd like to present Jay Kalawadia. Jay also had a botany project in which he was studying the testing various byproducts of photosynthesis and LD, basically CO2 production under different circumstances.
We understand that.
We had a 4th participant, Deb Fink. I'd like to mention Deb Fink, who was also at the state PJAS doing bubble technology, but she has a dance rehearsal tonight. She's also a gifted dancer, and these are also gifted musicians, so they're very talented and gifted students.
Yes, they are. We're lucky to have them. Board members are trying to get free lawn help off this young lady here. Good job. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mrs. Hubler. She's being shy. Mr. Kramlich. Mr. Kramlich?
Good evening. I'm proud to introduce 7 freshman students from Penndale to the Board of School Directors. These students have prepared independent science research projects to enter into competition. I'd like the following students please to come forward. Stephanie DeLanzo. Stephanie.
Why don't you wait till they all
Yeah,
get
they
around
come
here,
all
I'm gonna
around.
do some between.
Yeah.
Come on around.
Stephanie worked in collaboration with another young lady to create a uni-alarm device. She and Danielle Volmar placed first place at Montgomery County at their science research competition. And they went on and worked with the Women in Science and Engineering at the Environmental Protection Agency and won a first place award there.
Stephanie?
Next is
Stephanie?
Next is Jackie Liqueur. Jacqueline and Erin Somar worked in collaboration on a group.
Hold on.
Dr. Cronwick, one moment. Get the pen here.
He's done got one job.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find out where they're at here.
No, in line. This is pen.
Christine will straighten it. Keep more TV time, just think of that.
He does this for attention.
I know, I gotta get a camera.
That's Jackie. That's right here.
Okay,
Because he-
okay. There we go.
Don was trying to give out Penfield's award, Penfield's award.
Given the choice.
Okay.
The next young lady is Jacqueline Liqueur. Jacqueline worked with Erin Somar, and together their group project was one on the environment. It was called Clear as Can Be. At the Montgomery County Science Research Competition, they were given a special award by General Instruments Corporation and were invited by the Women in Science and Engineering in collaboration with the Environmental Protection Agency to enter their science fair. In Philadelphia, at that science fair, they were awarded a first place. Congratulations, Jackie. The next young man is Mark Sandine. His project was in environmental science entitled Microlife at Work. This young man designed a method to monitor water quality by surveying microorganisms that were present. He did this by varying the chemicals added to the water, and his goal was to simulate a water treatment plant. He did receive an award at the Montgomery County Science Fair. Congratulations, Mark. Erin Somar is the next young lady. She worked with Jacqueline Liqueur, whom you've already received. Erin and Jacqueline had the project that dealt with water quality. And as I had mentioned for Jacqueline, both these young ladies were invited to the Women in Science and Engineering Fair in Philadelphia, and there won a first place. Congratulations. The next young man is Michael Tobias. Mike is a computer whiz. His project was entered in the computer category and was entitled "Which Voice Activation Program Functions Most Efficiently to Run a Student-Created Program?" One thing that Michael did that was quite outstanding, he sent away to a variety of software companies and convinced them to send him software free. So taking that, he was able to use that software and to create a voice activation program in order to evaluate the effectiveness of those commercial programs. At the Montgomery County Science Fair, Mike was awarded a second place, and having achieved at that level, he was asked to compete at the Delaware Valley Science Fair. There, he received a third place award. Congratulations, Mike.
Jim, I said that he should be talking with our business manager on how to find those sort of relationships with computer companies.
This next young man is Robert Vince. His category of entry was botany, and he investigated an efficient light source for wheat growth. What is most interesting about Rob's achievement is that Rob has competed in the science fairs for 3 years, and each year his level of achievement has increased. This year at the Montgomery County Science Fair, his project was awarded the first place, the best project for a 9th grade botany student in the Montgomery County. As such, he was invited to participate in the Delaware Valley Science Fair. At this level, all students from Delaware, from southern New Jersey, and from southeastern Pennsylvania meet to compete. Rob's project won first place. He is the best project winner in 9th grade botany in that entire area. Congratulations, Rob. The next young lady worked in collaboration with Stephanie DeLanzo, the young lady next to her. They had the group project, the Unilarm, a personal alarm device. Their object was to create a device that would allow students living in a dorm situation to be able to awaken in the morning without interrupting the other individual. In doing so, they created an electronic device, some circuitry, that would set off an alarm that could be worn and that one person only would hear. They are looking to put a light into this so that it will be both a flashing light and an audio alarm. And I won't say the patent is pending yet, but listen for their names in the future. This young lady is Danielle Volmar. All of these students have brought honor to the North Penn School District through their outstanding achievement. Congratulations.
Dr. Cromley. One moment, ladies. Come on back. We have a little something for you, but I need to jog your memory. Uh-oh. Do you remember about 30 years ago?
Of course I do.
When you and I were both much younger.
Yes?
Do you remember your science class, 7th grade science class, how you proved to us that despite being upside down, you can still swallow a banana?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have a number of parents.
That call every year on that one?
Yes, because I now have the students.
Yes, he, again, we were much younger. He would put a pillow on the floor in front of the chalkboard. He would do a headstand. He would force an unfortunate child in the school to feed him a banana. Usually somebody who was loud and obnoxious and needed supervision. And gave the banana to Dr. Cromley, and he proved to us that you can swallow because there's little hairs in your throat, which none of us bought. We didn't buy it. We don't believe there's hair in your throat. And that they push the banana up or down?
Muscles. Push it.
Okay. But you can still eat a banana while standing on your head, and this man proves it every year.
Thank you.
That's right. That's right.
What you get?
In front of everybody on TV, right? Explain the process on Make the bed shake. Okay, the flashing lights, do the shaking bed.
Well, you must be really old.
Okay, Dr. Prusakowski.
Yeah.
Get Stephen Morris. And then Adam Roberts. Yeah, who are we playing on this? We got two guys.
There's two.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the administration and the school board for inviting us from Penfield to come here for proclamation night. And just to give us a little background, we had 5 students from Penfield who won awards at the Montgomery County Science Research Competition. The students that we had this year were first-timers. And just so you're aware of what they had to compete with, many of the categories in the science fair at Ursinus College had between 40 and 50 competitors in. So all of the students who were at the grade 6, 7, and 8th grade levels really had a lot of competitors to deal with. We have 3 people that won awards that aren't here tonight, and I certainly hope they're home studying for their exams tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm sure they are. All right. We had Kristen Stunkard and Leslie Seawagon, who were involved in health and medicine, and they did a project on which kind of toothpaste will whiten your teeth best. And they won an award for having the best dental project at the fair. That includes the middle school level and also the high school level. We had Laura Payard, who won an award in the behavioral sciences area for the project Is Seeing Believing, where she checked to see if males or females had a better inkling as to interpreting optical illusions. And her feeling was that the ladies have the upper hand. All right? Here with us tonight, we have Stephen Morris, who entered a project in the area of chemistry, and his project was called paper towel test. And he checked out the types of paper towels that would hold up best, and I'm sure somewhere along the way he can give Heloise some ideas as to making some good suggestions as to what kind of products would do us best. Adam Roberts was another entry at the
Why don't you
fair.
have Stephen come up? Okay.
Get down. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Okay. Stephen and the other contestants that I mentioned so far were all honorable award winners at Montgomery County. Adam was a third place winner in the area of engineering, and he did a project entitled Airfoil Dynamics. And he took advantage of using the technology department at Penfield in order to run the tests on various kinds of airfoils and check their lifting abilities. And somewhere down the line, I'm sure either NASA or Boeing or one of the other major companies will be looking for Adam. All of the kids did a great job. It was their first time, and I think they're to be congratulated. So thank you very much.
Dr. Prusakowski?
Well, on behalf of the board and administration, I'd like to congratulate you and thank you.
Thank you.
Next door, so. Mary, you didn't ask him what town? I was surprised he was our damn thing.
Hatfield, is there anything else?
Did you ask him? John, did you ask him? I didn't want to give him a commercial, I decided no. Okay, another round of applause for the students. Okay, Dr. Lighthouse.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pride I'd like to introduce to you the North Penn Stars. The North Penn Science, Technology, and Research students. And as you can see, since we came before you last spring, our group has grown in number, and we're proud of every single one of them. I'd like to first introduce to you Joy Brown. And Joy chose to work in medicine and health this year. She garnered an honorable mention at the Montgomery County Science Research Competition and at the local Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science, achieved a second with a formidable look at the correlation between taste perception and body build. She enlisted most of Gwynedd Mercy Academy to do this. She was there every evening with her subjects. So someday I'm sure she's going to be a fine physician. Joy?
There she is. You should be so famous, Mr. Brown.
I'd like to present next Janice Drew. She is our senior member of the team. And Janice chose to work in chemistry this year with the characterization of polypyrrole films with novel surfactants. Now with this, she received a second at Montgomery County, but went on to the Delaware Valley with a first, and both the local and the regional PJAS, Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science, to take a first. She received many, many accolades, including the Intel Senior Science Student, Pennsylvania Science Talent Search Senior Student, the Carl F. Orland PhD Award for Outstanding Senior Student, and the Lebanon Valley College Youth Scholarship Award, as well as the Iota Sigma Pi, the National Honor Society for Women in Chemistry, gave her a special award, and she certainly deserved it. Janice? Joe Galante is here, and he and a team member, Andrew Schwartz, who is standing next to Joy in the blue shirt, worked on a project in mathematics. They looked at the geometric analysis of conic, parabolic, and cylindrical sections. As a team, they received honorable mentions at Montgomery County, and Joe went on to make this an individual project for Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science, where he took a second place. Jeff Kime is one of our juniors, and this year, as last, Jeff chose to work in computer science. He received a second at both Montgomery County and at the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science. He was looking for a new method for computer optimizations, particularly in the area of genetic algorithms. Jeff? Okay. Gargi Kara was working in microbiology. She received honors at Montgomery County, and at our PJS, the local, she took a first and took a second at our state level. Her exploration was the most sensible way to sanitize a sponge, and for those of you who have seen Gremlins, I can tell you, microwaves work on bacteria too. She did a great job. Gargi. Bonnie Lau was working in medicine and health as well, And Bonnie was looking at the antacid expose, the effects of antacids, acid reducers, beverages, and meats on hydrochloric acid to simulate what happens in our tummies. Bonnie received both honors and at Montgomery County, as well as first place at our local PJAS and our state PJAS. Okay, Sandy Leonard is working in botany trying to make plants more potent so we don't have to swallow so many pills. She was investigating the manufacture and absorption of ascorbic acid in plants, and she received honors at Montgomery County and a second place at our PGAS. Congratulations, Sandy. Okay. Alexa Schmitz has been very busy looking at the effects and effectiveness of oil spill cleanups. And I know this is something she's going to continue this next year, looking at what's going on with sea plants. In fact, her family's planned a vacation around collecting sea plants. At Montgomery County, she took a third and brought that into a second at Delaware Valley. And then in our PJAS, she took a first and a second place at state, so she received quite a number of honors. And as I mentioned before, Andrew Schwartz was the other half of the team with Joe Galante, who worked on the geometrical analysis of the conic, parabolic, and cylindrical sections. They never did tell me which is the better half of the team. And they, as I said, they took honors in the Montgomery County. So congratulations.
Dr. Whitehall.
Well, Melody's coming forward. The other night I had an opportunity to talk about our honors orchestra, and I said to the parents, just think for a moment, these are elementary students. And I think tonight we also have to think about these are middle school students and high school students. And as I look at some of the members of our curriculum department, I think we need to bring them in for an in-service this summer. This is our challenge of trying to work to provide a curriculum that's appropriate for our students. It surely makes my erupting volcano in middle school pale in comparison. So I'd like to congratulate. Thank you.
Get the speech ready?
No?
Congratulations.
Great job.
You're welcome. Good job. What a good investment.
When you were real little. That's why it is. Congratulations. Where are you on vacation? Oh, my word. Absolutely. It does. And the parents, too. Folks, another round of applause for these fine students. Okay. Dr. Vencius.
Good evening. I'm very proud to introduce to you the winners of the Governor's School Scholarship. The Governor's School Scholarship is a program that was started in 1975. It is open to all sophomore and junior students throughout the state of Pennsylvania. There are 6 focuses, namely the fine arts, teaching, agricultural sciences, healthcare, international studies, science, and this year, for the first time, they are piloting a new program in information technology. To qualify for this scholarship, the student must have an outstanding academic transcript, as well as the quality of responses to several essay questions. For the fine arts, it's a personal essay as well as an audition. These students will spend 5 weeks during the summer on a campus throughout the state of Pennsylvania while they are being mentored by an outstanding faculty person. For example, in the area of music, it's usually someone from the Philadelphia Orchestra. Since 1975, North Penn has had 81 recipients of this scholarship. This year's winners: first, Sagar Bhatt, the area of healthcare, attending the University of Pittsburgh. Reed Collins, the area of music, attending Mercyhurst College. Deborah Hung, for information technology, Drexel University. Elizabeth Jin, international studies, the University of Pittsburgh. Nina Kalawadia, information technology, Drexel University. Bonnie Lau, for teaching, Millersville. And Shivanki Shah, healthcare, University of Pittsburgh. Monica Cray, International Studies, University of Pittsburgh.
Dr. Benfield? Oh, we don't have one for you either.
But come forward anyway.
Absolutely.
That's something to look forward to. Thank you.
No, come on forward. So you'd shake your hand. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you come around and shake all of our hands. All these girls following me.
Get somebody back there.
Another round of applause, please.
I guess something you understand.
Oh, you're great. Coach Watton. Good to see you back.
Nice to see you. I would like to present to this august group Cliff Wynn. He is the two-time Patriot Division Singles Champion. He's the only boy in the history of District 1 to win 3 consecutive District 1 championships, and he's won his second state championship this year. But the best news is, at least as far as I'm concerned, he's only a junior. Cliff, congratulations.
I'm not going to be shy, Coach. I'm getting an autograph now. He doesn't get this till I get this. And I'm going to get Mr. Coslow, too. Thank you. You made us proud. Coach Watt?
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What are you going to do when he graduates? Or help head hunting again?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Makes you look like a great coach.
Okay. Coach Swanker? Okay.
Who we introducing?
Dave Coslow?
No, it's essentially me.
Do we have Dave Coslow, Mr. Gordon? No. No? Okay.
Who am I introducing? Is this Ashley? Is this Ashley?
Yes, come on.
Is this Ashley?
Come on.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, Ashley. Wait.
I'm going to introduce Ashley.
Okay.
Ashley has earned considerable recognition for our school of North Penn High School as a member of the girls' track team, and she placed 5th in the 400-meter relay at the PIAA state championships this year. Ashley?
A round of applause. Okay, folks, we're told all the other students that were due to be here this evening for awards are studying for finals. What a plight.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Uh-oh.
I know.
Well, I still got a Cliff Music
I
autograph.
know one of them is.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, audience of citizens, this is your time before the meeting begins. Yes, Mr. Graziano.
Donna, don't forget to announce the executive session.
7 to 7:30. Yes.
Good evening, Bob Graziano, Telminson. I have two questions about school bus item that's on the agenda tonight, if I may address those to Mr. Wood. School bus specifications, I'll be the first to admit I know nothing about specifying school buses. And I guess it's not like a car where you basically have a couple of models to choose from. How much do we specify in a school bus?
We specify, our specifications, to give you an idea, this is a spec for a 20-passenger bus. And there are just literally probably 100 items that we specify. And we're very careful about specifying in accordance with lots of safety concerns. So we not only specify, we write a tight specification, but then as we begin to analyze the bids, we look very closely at what has served us well and what will provide the safest transportation for our youngsters.
Are our school buses fairly standard, or do we put a lot more into them than maybe other districts do?
No, our buses are rather standard for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We won't sacrifice and use hydraulic brakes, we use air brakes. We'll accept only air brakes. But our spec is a common spec that you would see with the Hagee fleet, you'd see it with the CB fleet, you'd see it with Methaction's fleet. So we're all pretty much on the same. And what's happening, Bob, quite frankly, once people realize what you want in buses, manufacturers are now beginning to build basically to that spec.
So we're not particularly paying more than,
No, we're paying by buying one-year-olds. The interesting thing, and I've explained this to the community and the board in the past, we specify one-year-old buses because we have a strange situation in the Commonwealth. If I'm a contractor, a private contractor, I have a better depreciation rate than we do as a school district. So contractors are now putting in their fleet buses. All of a sudden, all districts are looking to buy one-year-old buses because someone else takes the hit. And many of the buses that we received last year had 6,500 miles on them. So as a result, more and more people are doing that, and our pricing has been outstanding.
good. The second item is one of my pet peeves, and that has to do with vandalism. I know we've discussed this many times. Is there anything in the specifications that helps to cut down on the amount of money we lose with bus vandalism?
Well, we all know that bus vandalism, one of the things we specify is a high seat back. And the reason you do that, since you don't have seat belts in school buses, you want some kind of protection if you're in a collision and you lurch forward. The downside of a high seat back is it's very easy for youngsters to vandalize vinyl seats, if you will, and that's where all of our vandalism is. So you gain the safety aspect with a high seat back, but you also pay somewhat of a price from vandalism. There's not much other than putting a plastic seat in with no upholstery and no fabric.
Do we recover much when it comes to bus vandalism?
We do not. We do not. But as when we compare it with other districts, we're enjoying a minimal amount of vandalism, quite frankly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graziano. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Kuzma.
Walter Kuzma, Tolmanson Township. I had a chance to visit 2 classes that you have on the alternative learning program. I talked to Dr. Carter and we set up a time that I could visit both classes because I wanted to write an article for the Taxpayers Association paper. I was surprised. These kids are supposed to be kids that disturb other ones in the class and can't let the other ones learn. They're students, I think some may be a little bit slow in the regular class, so they put them in this. But overall, it's an excellent program. 70% is funded by the state. The rest is funded by the school district. When I went and I asked questions, I had the opportunity to ask whatever I wanted or make comments. You would be surprised at some of them. I asked one girl, why did she like it? And she says, I have a hard time getting up in the morning. And she says, between 4 and 8 when I go to school, I have no problem getting up. That's one of the answers. And the other one was they can spend time working during the day and then come to school and learn what they had to. But if these kids were kids that disrupted classes, they sure didn't show it. They were as nice as could be. And I think it's one of the better programs. But the trouble is, I didn't find out about it until I read it in the Record, the Doylestown paper. This paper, I didn't see carry anything about it. I don't know whether it was a hidden secret for a while or what. It started in February. And I asked Dr. Carter, well, at the end of the season, how are you going to evaluate this? Is it good? Is it bad? He said, well, when we put these kids in school here now, he said, we'll compare their grades with what they were doing in the regular classes and what they're doing now. Well, at least it's one way to check up on things. Now, everything wasn't perfect. There are a few negatives, but I got a letter to Dr. Cotter, and it's between him. It's something that he'll have to work at. 2 of the classes, the first class I went to was an English class, and they were either 9th and 10th grade students. And I don't want to mention the teacher's name because both teachers said, please don't mention our name. The only one that I really can mention that I talked to was a Mrs. Dickerson, and I think she's in charge of both classes. And in that English class program, the students were, ask them anything, they'd give you an honest answer. And the other class that I went to was in the computer room. And at that time, they were having business math on the computer. The one negative I had there, the kid was a senior. That was juniors and seniors. And he says, when I was in the regular class, I was taking trigonometry. And he said, I was doing well. He says, I don't need this learn for somebody to teach me how to save my money or anything else. He said, I work an 8-hour job during the day and I come to school at night. And he says, I don't need business math, which is simple. It teaches them what to do with their money and how to save it and stuff like that. So those are the pretty good things about the whole program. And I do hope you keep it up for at least another year, because you started out with 22, and when I was there, there was 38 in the class at that time. And I think you'll probably be able to go up to about 70 or so, and it's excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Walter, thank you very much. Appreciate that report from the field. Anybody else, please? Yes, Mr. Vigilante.
Just a couple of things. Jerry Vigilante, Hatfield Township. I was wondering, do we have seat belts in buses yet? In the big buses?
We do not.
Why don't we do that?
It has not been a regulation in the Commonwealth, and quite frankly,
Safety.
I believe when it happens, we're gonna need a full-time aide to make sure that the seatbelts are fastened. It's a problem of policing 72 youngsters on a bus and making sure their seatbelt is fastened. And as soon as if the driver had to do that, return to the seat and drive, as soon as they return to the seat, I can assure you they'll be undone.
We're comfortable with the...
Well, it's not a case of comfort. I mean, it's a safety issue. We know what seatbelts mean in accidents. And I think if you look at our buses and look at them closely, that's one of the reasons, and I alluded to high back seats. You know, it's not a solution for seatbelts, but it's certainly better than having the back bar on a seat at tooth level, if you will. And, you know, we've had debates. I belong to the Bucks and Montgomery County Transportation Directors Association, and it's been back and forth. And at this moment, across the United States, they're still debating. Now, in our smaller vehicles, our 10-passenger vehicles, we have seats.
Well, I say this because my son rides a small special ed bus, and he uses a seatbelt. He's used a seatbelt in a car seat ever since he was old enough to know to put it on. And it just seems to me that, you know, here we are, an educational group trying to educate our children on things, and now I have to explain to him why he doesn't have to wear his seatbelt all of a sudden next year when he rides a big bus, if he rides a big bus. But, well, I'm all for them if we ever want to put them in, or the state mandates them, and we want to hire aides to cover all of that. I'm behind it. I think it's a good idea. And the other thing was about the budget. We're talking about some tax-back money for the residents. I don't have as big a house as most of the people in this area. My from what the papers say, my tax back will amount to about $1 a month. I think that the paperwork involved in giving me $1 a month back on my taxes is just not worth it. I'd rather see you buy a bunch of pencils for the kids. I hope that this, whatever it is that you're thinking of doing, doesn't mean you know, a higher jump in taxes in the future. I'd rather see that money stay in there and be used somehow, or be held somehow, so that we don't have to have a big increase next year or the year after or something like that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else, please? Yes.
My name's Art Ramsey from North Wales. Art Wood, what's the bottom line on how much it's going to cost the taxpayers on this bus deal? Is there any way we can cut that in half? I mean, the buses, just buy 10 this year and maybe 10 the next year, or what's?
Mr. Ramsey, interestingly enough, we missed a few years where we were not involved in a replacement program. and as a result, it has now caught up with us. And we have narrowed our purchases to 19 instead of the 20, and we really need 19 vehicles to carry on the program and keep the fleet where it ought to be for the sake of.
We'll have enough children to put in all those buses?
Believe me,
and
we'll have enough children.
Well, we don't want this to hit the taxpayers too hard, that's why I'm asking them. You don't know how much it's gonna cost you?
Yeah, the bottom line is, we will be, the total award, as you can see, is $194,729.80 per year for 5 years. We've done a lease, and with the encouragement of Mr. Sowers, for the first time, we really shopped hard for financing, and I think you'll be anxious to know that our financing is at 4.6% over 5 years, which is a wonderful rate. So we've shopped it as hard as we can. We're buying one-year-old vehicles, and we are doing a lease purchase, and I think our interest rate is as good as we could ever get.
Is this coming into the budget that we're gonna kick around tonight?
It's in the budget, and it's in a category that includes leases of vehicles. So we're doing a lease purchase. We make a 5-year lease payment, and at the end of 5 years, we buy the vehicle for $1.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
It's the best we know how to do it, quite frankly.
Thank you, Art. I have a question for Vicki. I asked you to look into a matter of $77,800 and some dollars. Vicki, did you look into that for me?
77,000, help me out, Art. 77,800
And some dollars, yeah. $77,330 that we're supposed to get back from, let's see, received our Cash Achievement Award.
Oh, the cash.
Cash Achievement Reward money. Have we received that yet?
The Cash Achievement Award
Yes.
goes directly to the teachers.
That was received, that's the money based on the state assessment test.
Right.
That was received, and it's distributed to each of the buildings that, in a sense, earned it based on test scores and attendance. And they came up with a plan on how to utilize that money, which is really dictated by the state. It includes staff development, types of things like that. So yes, we did receive it, and it needs to be expended actually by the end of this year.
But Art, that can't even be placed in the general
No.
budget area
Is that
because
where that goes, into the general fund?
the state itself specifically gives it to a particular school if they've met certain criteria, so they defeat their purpose in their award if it could then suddenly be given to another school that didn't achieve it. So that's why they designate that it gets used right down at the local level. And they have to come, they present to the district what the plan is, the educational curriculum implementation that they're going to use that money for.
Does all
So
this
it's
money
there.
help us, Donna, in the budget, when we come to make up the budget? All this grant money and achievement money, and does this
Well,
enter into
the
your
monies that
budget?
you're talking about tonight are different from monies that are, that are either grant or awarded for another reason or another category. But every award and grant that comes through has stipulations. So to the extent that some of those awards or grants offset the budget, that's fine, but the award you're talking about right now, the $77,000, does not.
Good. I hope it, like I say again, that it doesn't hit the taxpayers too hard when you finally make a decision on your budget here. Keep that in mind, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You should be at the North Wales meeting tonight,
North Wales, where? At the Borough Hall?
at the borough.
I can't be both places at once.
You gotta get down there, they're gonna fry the chief in about an hour.
Yeah, I know. I should be down there too.
Yeah, keep me informed.
Thank you, Denny.
Okay. Anybody else, please? Anybody? It's your time? Okay, for purposes of the record, Ms. Liberowski, I need to announce that there was an executive session this evening from 7 to 7:30 for matters of personnel and potential litigation.
Mr. President.
Okay, superintendent's report.
Okay, recommend ratification of the appointment of C. Webster Hague to the North Penn School District Authority from January 1, 1999 to December 31st, 2004, item number 51-99.
Motion by Mosley, second by Sher. Any questions?
Is Mr. Hague here?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
B, recommend approval to submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Division of School Facilities, a Section 307-4A form for the driveway and parking lot upgrade at Inglewood Elementary School.
Second.
Motion by Shapinsky, second by Allen. Any questions?
Have we gotten a final bottom line number on this, or is this?
We opened bids, and our bids, initially, if you recall, I said the project would fall somewhere between 75,000 and 100,000. And most of our bids were 75 to 80,000. We had one bid at 102, and we have a low bid at 61,800. So it would appear we're still investigating clients and people that have had work done by the low bidder, and we will be coming back to you with a recommendation. But that's gonna be considerably under bid for the base work that has to be done. We're encouraged by that. And there is some lighting upgrades that we'll be doing with our staff that will be included in the overall budget. But it's apparent that we're gonna fall considerably below the $100,000 that we have in the capital fund.
Have we, did we receive any special requests from Towamencin Township, like retention basin and things of that nature?
They're still in the process of reviewing our drawings. You need to know that there is a retention basin in that bid, in the base bid. That's included. And we feel that in the base specification, we have met the requirements of Towamencin Township. Their engineer is currently looking at it. If you recall, I shared with the committee and with the board that we requested a waiver on the land development process in the township. And we're awaiting disposition on that.
Are they gonna get tree and shrub happy on us like they did at the vote?
We're gonna do some trees and shrub,
I mean, by.
but not, you'll be able to see the building for the forest.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Recommend approval to submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Division of School Facilities, a Section 307-4A form for the air conditioning and ventilation of the computer labs at Pembroke, Penndale, and Penfield Middle Schools and North Penn High School.
Second.
Motion by Schilling, second by Prokowski. Any questions?
Do we have a bottom line or anything on this yet?
We won't have a bottom line until we open the bid, which is next week. We had a budget, as you know, that is in the $400,000 range, so we're very anxiously awaiting the actual bid results.
Thank you.
How much of this is gonna be an in-house job? By your own name?
Not very much at all. It's quite an involved project to upgrade the cooling in all of these different areas. And it involves structural work, sawing roofs, for an example, at Brook and Field. It's a major project.
I have a question too. We're back to the Penndale renovation issue again. When it was being, $16 million was being committed to renovate this, it was a whole different board at that time. Questioned whether that $16 million renovation was gonna bring air conditioning to Penndale. Now, at that time, the answer was that the infrastructure would be all geared, everything would be put in place, and that it could be air conditioned, and that was for a later discussion. Now, it turned out to be a $15 million project, but we still have Penndale totally without air conditioning in any of the finished sections, other than the offices and the library, I assume.
Offices, library.
And now
Auditorium.
I'd like to have it clear, what would it actually take, since that is basically a new building, to actually bring air conditioning on board?
Well, first of all, you have to understand, when that was on the drawing board, and time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, you're back in '90.
That goes back quite a ways.
Yeah.
We weren't doing much with major computer labs. And if you go into the high school, when you go into the new high school addition and you see the two computer labs there, you will see double the amount of cooling. What you currently have at Dale, and what we did, in each unit ventilator that we put in the classroom, while we were doing it, we put the chilled water coil in. Didn't pipe to it, but the coil is there, which was the sensible
The
thing to do.
infrastructure work.
Even if we were piping those coils, we would not have adequate cooling in a computer room. You need twice the amount of cooling. So this proposal allows for offsetting the many BTUs that are produced, number one, by the units, and then, of course, people BTUs. And when you combine them, if you were cooling a regular classroom and you were using a 3.5-ton unit, you need to go to minimally a 7-ton cooling unit to do a lab of the same size.
So we have to do some work there, not as extensively as Pembroke or Penfield.
It will be extensively because
Oh.
we're only gonna cool those spaces. We haven't opted to cool the entire building, so we're not gonna be running chilled water that we can just pick up off of and use.
Well, I guess as we see our thermometers reaching over 90 degrees, I may as well visit that issue again, that we wouldn't open up a new elementary school without air conditioning in today's times. Every time we build a new elementary school, we had to realize the older schools do not have air conditioning, these new schools do. And I think the same should apply for a middle school that's serving so many students, that if we've invested the money for the infrastructure, it's a little tough to explain that by choice, we won't pay the electric bill.
And
On days
if I
like
can
today.
just offer my opinion, I agree with you. And if we were doing a new middle school, we would certainly cool it. But if you go back now and do Dale, I think you have somewhat of an obligation to do Brook and Field.
Well, it should have opened that way though, Art, that's my point, especially when we've got the self-enclosed Pella shades down the whole corridors, and we
Windows.
don't have the air conditioning. I mean, that's
Pella
just one thing, goes right back, and I just wanted to check, is it or is it not prepared for air conditioning with just some minor, with some
The
modifications?
coils are there, you need to produce the chilled water with a chiller and pipe it to the classroom.
Facilities department, perhaps we could have a review of that, just to see whether it's practical to leave that school still suffering under those conditions, or whether it should have been adjusted for today's times, and deal with the issue. Thanks.
Yeah, but the issue is compounded with Brook and Field, and,
Well, yeah, but.
you know, that's how we did science labs across the middle school
Yeah, I know you point out,
board,
but
because
really.
they, you know,
Right.
we're talking parity.
But we didn't spend 16 million to open it without it, and just like Gwinnett Square has air conditioning as well as Walton Farm and Bridle Path, and then you've got the Hatfield
Right.
Elementary in Oak Park. We would have looked foolish to have invested money in a new building and not established it, and yet we basically did the same thing when we did Penndale for that major renovation. I mean, it's not like we put $1 million into the building.
Different time, different board. We did Montgomery without air conditioning, and we probably regret that today. But that was a choice of another board in 1989, not the air conditioning.
That's quite
That's why they try to pay their teachers.
All right.
That's right.
Sorry
Big
to
contract
throw
there.
us off track, but
They spent.
I just
Okay,
think it's there.
yes, sir.
Are we able to benefit from the infrastructure that we put in there when we did the renovation?
With this project, no. Separate above and beyond.
So we've invested it, but we're not carrying it through.
Anybody else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
D, recommend award of the following bids for the lease purchase of school buses opened May 11th, 99.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hill, second by Schilling. Question?
Yes, ma'am. This is coming out of the 1999-2000 budget?
That's correct.
We haven't approved the budget. Why is this even on the agenda?
Because if we don't award tonight, vendors will not hold buses beyond tomorrow. And it's a decision that you have to make.
What do you mean tomorrow? Tomorrow, the
We have been
9th of June?
That's correct. We have been able to have them agree that they would hold the vehicles that we bid, but they will not go beyond tomorrow. They're saying it's over, you need to award. And I understand where they're coming from. Everybody wants the same vehicles. And so it's not uncommon to make this kind of a commitment before you pass a budget. It's always done. I mean, it's,
And you're buying used, so there's competition with other districts for the used
everybody
vehicles.
wants used buses that only have 7,500 miles on them. I mean, the vendor takes the hit, the contractor takes the hit up front, and we appreciate, I mean, we're on the end of it. Most people have gotten their buses. And I can tell you, from other school districts around us, they've even taken delivery, and they too are just now approving budgets. I mean, it's not uncommon for districts to buy these in March and April, and we're at the tail end.
What are we gonna do with the 19 buses that we're gonna replace these with?
We're gonna hope that after we strip them for parts, that without paying someone to take away the carcass, that we can get rid of them. I mean, that's how bad they are, and I certainly would welcome you to come look at them. We're gonna strip them and keep them for parts and hope that a salvage company will not charge us to take away the rest of the bus.
I'd just like to say for the record, Madam President, that when this was brought, during the budget meetings, when this was brought forward, and it's basically a 5-year plan where we replace 20 buses every 5 years. I have concerns with that because we do have a history of having very good buses, good maintenance. In fact, I think a few years ago, there was a situation in this district where we did get rid of some buses and other districts bought them and still used them. And I don't know if that's a situation. I did ask at our finance meeting, Mr. Cotrain, and I did not get the information because we're always hearing how bad these buses are and you know, that we got to replace them and so forth. I did not get any kind of a update as to exactly what is wrong with these buses.
Right now, we have 9 buses out of service.
What are they out of service for?
Engine. And
Right.
it is not worth the investment to replace the engine compared to the value of the bus and the condition of the frame. These are 84 and 85 buses. We lose reimbursement after 10 years. And Pat, quite frankly, the fleet's tired. And, you know, from a safety standpoint, our recommendation is that we get involved in a replacement program. We had a replacement program going in this district, and under other leadership, it fell by the wayside, and we missed a number of years where we didn't replace any vehicles. And now it's caught up with us.
I know that, and I would not want to put any child in an unsafe bus. Let me ask you this. We are required in the state to have our automobiles and our trucks inspected at least once a year. Is the same thing done with our buses?
A much more rigid inspection on
And-
school buses. We inspect them as you would inspect of your vehicle, but then we also have a mass inspection by the Pennsylvania State Police on a given day in July or August, where they go throughout the Commonwealth, district to district, and they are very critical in that inspection.
And they're recommending that these 19...
They would never make that recommendation.
Oh, okay.
It's our recommendation.
Okay.
And our mechanics' recommendation. I mean, I trust explicitly the mechanics we have. They'll take you and they'll share with you, and they'll put these vehicles on the lift, and they'll show you what we're getting rid of. You will never face a situation under my leadership where we would get rid of the kinds of buses we got rid of when we contracted with Ryder the last time around. I won't take responsibility for that. You are right. They are in other fleets of neighboring districts, and that was unfortunate. That will not happen. When we get rid of a bus now, believe me, you won't want it if we give it to you.
I would still like to see that exactly, you know, what some of the shortcomings were on these buses. And
Sure.
I personally think from a budget standpoint, Madam President, being involved with the finance and the budget, I think that replacing 20 a year is rather over-aggressive, but that's my opinion.
It would help if there would be a stipulation, Art, that none of these buses, the 19 in question, are going to be sold to anybody.
The question
They are
would
all
be,
19 will be stripped.
the 19 buses, first of all, we're not going to get rid of 19.
Okay.
We have a need for increased busing. We talked in
Okay.
cabinet yesterday about new busing regs that we're facing and more kids that we're busing
And
than we've
special
ever
ed.
bused before.
And special ed's up.
If we get rid of 10 buses, and I'm going to recommend to the board, and it's probably a good opportunity now, we have one of the vehicles that the North Penn SWAT team would like to have, with the understanding that they will rebuild it and they will pay for the repairs. I will come back with a recommendation that we cooperate in that way. It's a bread truck type, it's a small bus. Other than that, the others we are gonna strip and we are gonna junk. I mean, they're scrap.
Okay, I think that any kind of a stipulation that is understood by the board would help, because, Pat's right, you know, we all know those times. You were not in leadership then, neither was I.
I wasn't accusing Mr. Wood. I want to...
Right,
I
right.
just-
But, you know, we have been a laughing stock because people would pick up our buses and use them, and if it's good enough for their kids, it's good enough for our kids, you know. And so, you know, this board, being more conservative, is more sensitive about that.
I'm just concerned with the fact that buying 20 buses in one shot's an awful lot of buses to buy in one shot. And if we're talking about replacing 20 buses every 5 years, or every year replacing 20 buses, this is, in a 5-year plan, this is going to be a considerable expense. And I just can't believe that we have 135 buses now. I just can't believe that, you know, all 135 are going to have to be replaced within the next 5 years, because I know either last year or a couple of years ago, we got into another lease purchase situation where we bought 4 or 5 buses and we're going to buy them back at $1. And I commended you at that time because I was involved in facilities, and I said that was great because of the fact that we were doing it on a gradual basis. I just think that, you know, this is, and I'm not going to take any more of the,
Well, and
I think this
we
is rather accelerated, that's all.
We did share, Pat, if you recall, we gave you a history of the fleet. We
Yes,
gave
you did. I
the
have it.
age of every
Yep.
vehicle, the
I have
mileage
that.
that's on it, the
Right.
ones that we're gonna retire. And you'll continue to look at it each year, the board will look at it
Yeah,
each year.
I won't be.
Well, I won't either, but someone will certainly look at it closely.
Let's hope
and
they do.
It's our recommendation that to put our fleet where we feel it needs to be, we need to buy 19. It's not 20, we reduced it to 19, not that that's a big deal, but it's 19 vehicles.
Betsy, did you have a question?
Yeah. Art, over the last 3 years, not including this year, how many buses have we bought?
I'd have to go back, I think it's 8 and 8, and now 19.
I'm not counting this. It's funny, because when this first came up, I dug through all the paperwork I had, and I found a report to George Starkey that I got when I was president of the taxpayers. 93, 94 bus purchase recommendation, a 5-year plan. First off, the mileages that are rated in here, all the buses that we're liquidating have well over the limit that you had written here, well, whoever it was back then. I think it was Hartenstein. Also, for 95 to 96, 96 to 97, and 97 to 98, we were recommending at that time, this is 6 years ago, to replace 43 buses. We only replaced 16.
That's correct.
And that led to the problem we have today. Also, I noticed on here, it has we have different, I'm sure I know this because I remember going through the study with you, that we have heavy peak use for sports and different things like that.
That's
And it
correct.
said in this report that at that time, the district had 122 buses, 105 were assigned on regular runs, and 15 were either spares or parts. So I assume that that's not an uncommon practice from the past either.
We keep spares, to give you an idea, and I can only relate the activity in some of our middle school athletic programs. For an example, our gals at Brook go to Bridle Path for basketball practice, our girls at Field go to Walton Farm for basketball practice. That is a spare bus that we're willing to run within the district, because if we have a problem with it, we can bring it back, tow it back to the compound. The kids aren't up in Palisades or over in Doylestown or whatever. So our spares we use for those runs. And it's important that we have them, because in the spring and the fall, we have a major transportation department.
Well, the reason why I brought this up was, this 5-year plan showed you replacing half the fleet. So I would assume over the next 5 years, you would replace basically all the fleet. So it's not that uncommon. It is a big hit, and I really think the board should consider putting us on a regular maintenance program every year so that we don't get big hits like this. That would save us a lot of grief probably in the long run. But again, that's contingent on the buses we get and the condition they're in when we get them. But I don't see anything out of the range other than the fact that you were just ordering a lot this year.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions this way?
Yeah, Vince, I think I know the report, it was right before we did the rider contract. But, you know, we bought 8 each of the last 2 years.
And that's off the top of my head.
Right, and I know you'd said earlier that many of the buses we were buying had 6,500 miles on them or so. But also, when we went to rider, the other aspect of it is, it wasn't a matter of buying new buses, but it allowed us to decrease the average age of our buses, because when we moved to rider and they picked up the several dozen routes that we were transporting for our students from, Corpus Christi or
Non-pubs.
Sten, the non-pubs, right. It allowed the district to purge itself of its older buses. It in itself was a way of updating our fleet through attrition. that isn't being accounted for here. I mean, we dropped over 20-some routes. We gave 20-some routes to Ryder at that time, and then we moved up since then. Of course, we've grown. We're now 54 routes is being covered
No,
outside
we're
the district.
58 with Ryder, we'll go to
Outside.
60 next year. But you have to
Right,
remember,
outside
Vicki,
our district.
we took some hard hits. Remember when all the kids that were walkers to Penndale, all of a sudden we had to bus?
Right.
Because it was deemed an unsafe route? Our busing routes just continue to grow within district, beyond belief. I mean,
With
a
almost
lot
every
of this,
challenge.
a lot of this is not just upgrading the fleet, it's also adding vehicles. And we also got selective because we convinced you folks, we didn't want to ride with 18 kids on a 72-passenger bus. And if you look in the last 2 years, we were buying the 20 minibuses, 20-person minibuses, and they really allow you to customize routes where you're not running a large bus with 20% of the kids on the rated capacity of the bus. So there's been a lot of that streamlining going back and forth, but every time we have a route declared hazardous that has been non-hazardous, I mean, we don't have a lot of walking kids anymore in the North Bend School District. And when you start transporting that many kids, you need vehicles. And you also need vehicles with, every time you add a new school, we go in tiers. I mean, we have tiers throughout the day where you're doing middle school tier, high school tier, early elementary, late elementary. And you have to do it that way so that you have enough vehicles to do it.
My problem is, though, I haven't followed since like '88. I've seen this district hit with some heavy additional transportation needs. The opening of 2 elementary schools in a year, while elementary growth in itself was increasing by 10%, as well as secondary and all. I have never, ever, under any circumstances, seen a 20-bus a year plan come through. I mean, and I'm looking at just this 20, which adds up to a commitment of $1 million, $975,000 that's being committed for in these 20 buses. Then I look, and if it's 20 buses next year on top of that, well, we're carrying the 1 million, now we're gonna be compounding an additional million, one after another, to where we could be having to pay for $4 million worth of buses in your 4th year of this?
And I would suggest.
All in 1 year payments?
I would suggest you need to compare us apples to apples. Go to Council Rock, go to CB, go to Neshaminy, and go to Pennsbury. Not uncommon for them to add 30 buses a year.
But we.
Year after year after year.
But we have now stabilized in our growth, and I just see so much of it, we're having rider increase so much, and this kind of plan that you're talking about here, if it is really dependent on these 20 going, and then adding another 20 and another 20, I just think it's overly aggressive. You've got $4 million just on your payments. We're gonna be competing with our debt service in this district.
It's your call, it's your call, my friends, but I'm saying we have to bring you a recommendation
Right.
that provides you the best possible service for the least cost.
Well, I know I followed these discussions, and I know it was introduced to Facilities Committee, but I did not at any time hear that these bids were already put on a timeline that they'd have to be approved before the budget issues were wrapped up. And it seems to me that if there's still board members that would like to see this administration consider additional cuts to the budget, do we really want to slam the door completely on one of the most expensive new recommendations that are here? Because it may be $200,000 for this year, but it's a $1 million commitment. We'll take in $1 million worth of buses, and we're committed to pay for them throughout the 5-year period.
I would ask you to call any of the vendors tomorrow with the last school district to bid buses. That's all I can tell you. And
Well, I didn't know it was coming till we got our packet, so there was no coming back to the
Well,
more
we've been talking
discussion.
about this for months, quite frankly.
Well, I know it's
And
been
one of the
discussed,
reasons that we bid used buses, you cannot, and Mr. Sowers will tell you this from his experience in other districts, you can't order buses on June 25th, and you'll have delivery January 1.
Last year, didn't we lease through Ryder? And we have an agreement with Ryder for a
We've
possible
had an
lease?
agreement, we were 4 buses short in our own
Right.
fleet a number of years ago.
4 years.
Ryder gave us a price that was unbelievable. We've kept those 4 leased. Our other leases are with Thomas Leasing, which is the manufacturer of Thomas buses, and Bluebird Leasing Corporation out of Georgia that manufacture Bluebird. We found this year their interest rates were 5.3 and 5.1%. So that's when I went out and began shopping based on Jim saying, Art, there's cheaper money out there. We came back at the 4.6, so we're not leasing through the manufacturer. We've changed that aspect. But I can only tell you, one of the advantages of bidding used buses is you have them for September. If you bid if you would place orders for new, as a matter of fact, 2 of our buses that we're asking for here, and I'm very pleased to tell you that they're gonna be Model 2000s. We're not gonna have those until December, the 284s.
Nobody's arguing, I think, about taking advantage of the depreciation for the car that's been driven off the lot.
I'm saying being able to
I mean,
get buses.
That's not the issue. It's just never having seen us hit for this many at this given time, and then you're talking perhaps that's every year for the next 5 years. I think that perhaps we need to go a step further in a review of what is happening in our transportation department then. I know there are buses that are running. Bus routes have gotten shorter. The average bus route is maybe 15, 20 minutes, so we do have buses carrying 15 students. There's 72 passenger ones. But the issue is, do we need smaller buses, or do we need to take a look at these routes so that we don't need so many routes, picking up 15 students per load, and then heading back to the high school and et cetera?
I would only tell you,
we've got to go deeper than
this
this.
is the most streamlined routing system that we've ever appreciated this year. John Cotran and his folks have knocked themselves out. And believe me, I welcome any of you to come and visit with us and see what we're doing.
Isn't Edgelog finally working the way it's supposed to?
Edgelog is working well.
The way it's supposed to be?
Yes.
I struggled with that. Mr. Kowski, you had a question?
My question was along the same lines in the capacity. What capacity are we using most of our buses at?
Well, we've talked about that so many times, Terry, and it's interesting. We try, and we're doing a gutsy thing at the high school. We're over-scheduling our buses because we know that kids won't ride. And then we worry about the day we have an ice storm, and all 104 kids that we've scheduled on a 72-passenger bus are waiting at stops. And that's the thing we have to be careful about. When people are critical and say, I saw a bus leave Penfield today, it had 7 kids on it. And I investigate that, I go back to learn that it's a 72-passenger bus, and we had 71 kids scheduled to ride on it. So, I mean, you can play roulette, but you have to be a tad careful.
I agree with that. But are we at an 85% capacity on an average day, or are we at a 20% capacity on an average day? And if we're at 20, then yeah, we are being too aggressive. But if we're at 85,
I can get that information for you. I mean, John would be delighted to share that with you, but we've been through this. I went to John, if you recall, and told him we have to overschedule high school buses. And we're doing it. Fortunately, we haven't had ugly winters for the last few.
But Art, what if we really did look at this, especially at the high school? I mean, more than ever before, kids have their own cars. I mean, the kids are more fortunate.
With base and parents leaving in the morning to drop them off and stuff.
Things have changed, obviously, over 20, 25 years.
It's all taken into consideration.
And if we're gonna have snow and all that sort of thing,
We don't
then we
have
don't
no
come to
schools if it
school.
snows
Then
anyway.
don't even send the buses
There's a
down.
nice storm, the school's closed anyway.
But these, either we're too lenient with how many kids can bring cars to high school. I mean, you don't even have that at the college level. I mean, they restrict bringing cars to college. But, you've got 10th graders with cars now. It used to be mostly seniors. Now, these kids are all pretty, and then, of course, one kid has a car, 4 get in it. So, we're running, the high school is where we have really that's that X factor that never gets figured out for buses.
Well, yeah, but how dependable are those kind of things, and how can you really bank on those kind of variables? What are you talking about, 100 kids driving to school now, extra? Now you're talking a bus and a half. I mean, how do you judge where they're coming from out of the 50 routes we're running?
Can they sign off bus services?
Vince, there's some
Can
We do
seniors
it like
sign
away
in?
bus
Talk
trips
to
to bus
them.
kids.
Are,
I mean, that's a very hard, that's not an exact science. I mean, that's a fluid situation. It changes daily with the weather and the conditions.
Right.
And when you get to summer or you get to the spring, you got sports and I'll tell you, I'll go over to the late bus on Tuesdays and Thursdays and I'll see them stuffed.
Yeah.
And my kid will spend an hour on that bus getting home because that bus is it. I mean, that's what it rides around. So, I don't know how you can really try to figure out that kind of formula to say, I can save myself 2 buses. That's right. That's a real tough situation that
Vince,
you're asking John Cotran to do.
I'm talking about a bus that's a 72 passenger that runs with 16 students max on it.
Well, then maybe we
You're not
should
gonna
send
say
a
60
20
kids are
after it,
gonna,
or
50
I would
students
ask
are gonna
you,
show up
Vicki,
on a snow day.
How many kids are assigned to that bus?
But-
Let's not
but
talk
there
about what it's running
There
for.
becomes a point where you know that some of the students you might be counting are, Gwen and Mercy, I don't know, from our neighborhood and these 2 stops.
Yeah, that's
One
not
thing I
something
do
to
know
plan.
that I have watched these bus stops get smaller and smaller, shorter and shorter. Good, my kids like it, it's great, and I'm not talking about returning to the days of 45-minute bus routes. But we are looking at bus routes that have now gone down to 15, 20-minute routes. If we can resolve some of our transportation costs that are skyrocketing by adding 5 minutes to those routes and putting a few more students on those buses, I don't think that the parents have a
But
complaint
then
there.
you cross over into another starting time.
Wait a minute.
For another
Art.
a wave of schools.
Art.
John will come to you and show you where if we increase, or we do what you're suggesting, we're not gonna make starting times that we're making in the next wave for elementary or middle school.
Wait a minute,
Well,
don't
my
mix the
children,
issue.
the
though.
children are getting
Art.
picked up earlier, don't get me wrong. They get picked up at 40 minutes before school, but that's so they can go and have breakfast at the school. I mean, the
But,
pickup, let's
Art,
be honest
don't-
here.
don't miss the
We
point that we have
moved
more
these
smaller
times
buses now
up
than
to be able to sell breakfast at our
Up to half our
schools.
fleet.
So all kids are forced to get up early, eat their breakfast early if they're not eating at school, get themselves dropped off 15 minutes before the bell so we can sell them the products that we want them to purchase. And I'm saying, not about cutting into moving our routes all around, can't we just be a little bit more reasonable in the scheduling, because it is skyrocketing, Art, and something's gotta be done
I will
about it.
suggest to Mr. Cotran that we investigate everything that you've mentioned tonight. I have suggested it time and time again, and they've proven to me that right now, we're doing it as efficiently as we can do it and still meet the starting times of 13 elementaries, 3 middles, and the high school. Go to the high school. The whole fleet is required, almost the entire fleet, to move the high school. I mean, you know.
Art, tell me the breakfast program is not driving the transportation
It's
department.
not.
Thank you.
Not-
I cannot
Those
sleep
kids don't
tonight.
get to
If
school
we're
before
doing
it
this for
starts.
breakfast, I will just,
We
I quit.
moved it.
I'm out of here. I can't take
We're
it.
not busing for breakfast. Anybody that's.
Yeah, that's
done it
ridiculous.
Please stop that, yeah,
is
really.
giving you bad information.
Well, I was told that they needed to have them in for 9 o'clock, because
No,
otherwise
it's
the
not-
program wouldn't be,
A lot of kids don't get there in
working.
time
I
for
think we
breakfast.
debated this.
If you're there, and if you're a walker, or if your parents drop you off and you want breakfast, it's provided. We're not busing you to breakfast. This is not, drop you at Charlie's Diner.
So then all these were just saying it was coincidental.
I
Well,
would
my
put it
issue
past
is
kids
about those
today.
with some empty seats. Mine are those that are 2/3 empty that I think we need to take over.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and there's been a second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Mosey,
No.
Kowski,
Yes.
Scher,
Nay.
Schilling,
Yes.
Shapinsky,
Yes.
Mengel.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 to 2.
Thank you. Superintendent.
Yes?
Yes.
Recommend approval of the following support staff nomination, Barbara Kessler for ESC payroll specialist.
So moved.
Motion by Mosey, second by Schilling. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Jim, would you make sure you thank the people back that are handling this now, before this person comes on board? Because I know they're working very long hours. I know some of them were here during the holidays, straightening out a lot of this paperwork, because they had to move this stuff forward for our employees. To make sure they know that we appreciate it, because I could not believe on a holiday weekend that those people were here
They were
every day of the
here.
week, or weekend for that holiday.
I'll be sure to pass that on. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, folks, it's 5 after 9.
Three-year contract.
Where's Dr. Hassel?
He's really touching it.
Who, Don Hill? Where's that jar? He's got his pens all bunched in a wall. Hey, Bob, we're about to decrease your increase. Yeah, your Bluebird, that big yellow car you drove, 72 seats in it. Okay. Okay. Folks, what we've been waiting for, gentlemen. Dr. Benjamin, get your helmet on, put your mouthpiece in, you're going in. ESL program study and review, Dr. Hassler. Yeah, I know it's scary, isn't it, to hear your own voice?
Okay, at the educational services meetings for the last 3 months, or almost 18 years it seems, there's been work on the ESL program for a long time.
The committee's only been in effect for a year.
Yeah, this past 3 months with the new Educational Service Committee, there's been work and recommendations regarding our ESL program, which we know is growing, and we also want to look at how we deliver the program. So I'll turn it over to Betty Robinson, who will introduce and review the recommendation. And also at the last Educational Service Committee meeting, the committee asked us to come back with some answers to some specific questions, and that's the kind of the core of what we're going to talk about tonight. Betty?
Thank you. I would like to introduce Gail Jerkson-Rhodes and Lana Donaher, who have been working with me on this project. Lana serves as the department chair for ESL, and Gail is our reading coordinator, reading language arts coordinator. This is a project that has been ongoing since about 1994 as a part of our regular curriculum review cycle with all subject areas. On a regular basis, we do look at programs, and this is a program that needs a serious look, and thus we have brought it before the Educational Services Committee for the past 3 months to try to get some direction on how we can get a better handle on our ESL program. You're probably aware that our numbers of ESL students have increased dramatically over the past few years. And in the packet that you have with your agenda, there is a fleshed out plan that we have developed that will hopefully answer questions that were posed to us at the Educational Services Committee meeting. We're here tonight to ask that you accept the recommendation at your next board meeting to allow us to engage in a year of study to determine what is the best delivery of service for these children. In years past, when we had fewer numbers, the current model was more appropriate. But we truly feel with the increase in numbers, and if you look at your packet, I think there are upwards of 120, over 200 students. Elementary K to 6, more than 275 students. And we don't feel that the model we have now is addressing those students' needs, but we're also not prepared at this point to say to you that this is a model that we want to recommend for the future. We think we need to study it. If you look at refer to the packet that, as I said, is attached to your agenda, tonight's agenda, you'll note that we have a primary rationale for asking for this year of study. We want to be able to provide more effective and efficient instruction so that we can accelerate assimilation into the regular ed classroom. We focus on language acquisition skills, and we want to be able to place students in regular education sooner. And we believe that with more direct instruction, we can do that. We also want to make sure that we increase the instructional time for our non-English speaking students. Again, if you look at that packet, there is a section that indicates, I believe it's on about page 4. On page 4, that currently in grades 1 and 2, there are approximately 110 ESL students across 13 buildings. However, we have about 65 of those students in 2 of the 13 schools. And 50 of the non-English speaking students, of these students rather, are non-English speaking. And we believe if we can capture their attention at the early grades, at first and second grade, we would be able to provide better instruction, but more importantly, assimilate them into a regular education classroom sooner, and thus perhaps not have to provide services as they're older. So we're here tonight to answer any questions that you might have regarding this plan. And you might also know that we are proposing that we use the monies that the federal government has allocated to the North Penn School District to reduce class size, so that the cost to the district actually is no more, actually less than what you're spending now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's start questions to the left. Mrs. Cassie? She just raised her hand.
I did, but go
Oh,
ahead.
no, go ahead, I'll wait. I don't need.
Yeah.
That's why.
I have to get my back up at the microphone just in case.
The students coming into the program, are a majority of them coming in first and second grade? Are they coming in as new to the district students, like kindergartners, first grade? Or are they coming in as siblings of older students that are in sixth grade, and fifth grade, and first grade, and so we needed spread out all levels?
For the past couple of years, in our elementary ESL population, our largest numbers have been in kindergarten, first, and second grade. Now, I'm not really certain as to how they break down with siblings and upper grades. It's just that
You know what I'm asking? If I move my family in, I have them spread all over. I'm not a new family, where I have a kindergartner. I'm just moving in with a kindergartner and I have younger ones. But, you know what I'm asking?
I'm not sure
For
though.
demographics before kindergarten.
It's the demographics.
How many children are younger than kindergarten coming from a new beginning family? I mean,
Or
a projection
are
of
they
who's yet
just
to come.
spread over the whole? When they're coming in, are we getting a lot of sixth graders? Or are we getting,
There's a mix of numbers.
there's no peak anywhere?
It's just that our enrollments, as far as the school-age children, we seem to have more ESL students in K-1 and
Okay.
2 than the upper grades. Whether it's they're gaining the language in those upper grades so that they need fewer services at the older age
Okay.
levels, or there are, shall we say, younger families moving into the district. I'm
You
not
don't know.
sure about
Okay.
that. I'm really not sure about that. Through the registration office, I would have to look with you to see what spreads and ages and everything.
We have not looked at that type data, so.
That might help with long-range planning if you're looking at this for 1 year, because they take census information on everybody else that comes in the district, and I know we have to list who else lives in the family home. That's not in
You may
school, they'll
already
have your,
have it.
infants,
Yeah.
toddlers, So that can be pulled, I mean, everything's computerized around here, that could be pulled and that would give you a chance to plan.
I know traditionally, historically speaking, the projections that we have now in spring.
Right.
For example, right now, I'm looking at about 110 first and second graders for the fall in elementary ESL with those non-English speaking families living in the North Penn School District today. Now, if you were to talk to someone from Lou's office, you would realize that between now and the opening of school in September, especially those last 2 weeks of August, first 2 weeks of September, there will be large numbers of non-English speaking families registering. People who move into the district over the summer, people who will take leases
the end of August, beginning of September for the school year. The only thing that has held true with those numbers are that those numbers increase year after year after year.
Okay, Mr. Moser.
And I think, I just want to add, I think in addition to that, the number of languages has increased over the years.
I was going to ask the ladies to read the list. You just have a few key ones here, but would you just read off for everybody's edification here exactly what you're dealing with?
When we started the program here in the 70s, the majority of our non-English speaking population was from a Korean background. Our largest population today is from India, and most of those people are speakers of the Gujarat language from the state of Gujarat in India. Our next largest group today is from Bangladesh. We have a large number of Bengalis who are now living in the North Penn community. We also have a large number of Spanish-speaking people, Vietnamese-speaking people. And in addition to that, we have a large number of Chinese, people from Cambodia who speak Khmer. We have Polish people, Russian people, Spanish people, people from Pakistan who speak Urdu. We have gotten some people from Africa in the past couple of years speaking Efik from Nigeria. There are more than 27 different languages represented within our program.
Okay, Mr. Mosey.
Thank you. Dr. Robinson, I'm a little disappointed because I appreciate you getting the additional information we requested at our committee meeting, but also there were a couple of models that were given, and also there was a list, a breakdown by school as to the languages that are being taught in the schools, and I just don't understand why that wasn't given to the rest of the board, because at our meeting, this was going to cost the district more money.
Well,
Because unless I'm wrong, but right now they're getting 5 hours there's 15 support, ESL support people having student contact for 5 hours a day, costing us $165,000. And if we went to 5.5, we would then have to provide benefits to those ESL people. 28%, which was $232,000. Now, I know that you gave the model that you were going to use some of it because there is a grant that would offset some of this the first year. In the second year, the cost escalated to $282,000. I just think it's been helpful to the board. You know, they want to make copies of mine, but I think this information should have been given to the whole board.
We have copies, and I believe we thought it was sent out with a what's up.
Okay.
We're pretty sure.
Yeah, we were
And
under-
if we didn't, we
Because I
apologize.
had to go back and pull from my agenda.
we were under the impression
It
that
was-
that had gone in your board packet.
Okay.
And if it
So-
wasn't, what would help
Okay.
is if somebody could call us ahead of time if they noticed too. I mean, if we overlooked it, we apologize.
No,
but
that's
we do
fine.
have
I
copies.
just think it's been helpful to the board because.
We do have additional copies of
copies
that
that we
tonight
got.
if someone does
I'll
not
tell
have
you-
that.
I'll tell you what I said at the committee
Rather than
meeting.
get 'em
I'll tell you what I said at the committee meeting is the fact that I found out that the part of this is being driven because of a personnel issue. And secondly, I have a fear that we might be entering into a reading recovery program where it started out as a pilot program and 3-4 years down the road, it was a $640,000 program, most of it going to salaries. So I think that the finances have to be looked at by the board and considered. And I just have another question, Dr. Robinson.
Before you move to your question,
Yes.
if I just may
Yes.
respond.
Yes.
What you are referring to really was a request of the committee to expand our current model
Right.
and look at it over a 7-hour day.
Right.
We were asked to do that. That was not our recommendation.
You also had an
And-
alternative one,
okay,
5.5 hours.
Right, now, I want to get to that.
That's what I was talking about.
When we looked at the 7-hour day, we realized, the three of us realized, that there would not be a significant increase in student contact time. It was a 1/2 hour out of that 7-hour day. So on our own, and maybe we shouldn't have been so ambitious or
No, that's good.
shouldn't have looked that far ahead, we decided to show then what would it look like if we went to a 5.5 hour day. Since we were only going to gain a 1/2 hour, if we expanded it to 7 hours, we thought, why pay for 7 hours? Let's just look at a 5.5 hour day. where you capture that half hour and only add a half an hour to the salaries. So we gave you those three costs because we have been asked to expand the program. On the second page, which deals with year 2, again, at the time, we were trying to be proactive and look at, if we did this in year 1, what would it cost the board in year 2? Because we wanted you to have that information.
Right.
We're not coming to you at this point even suggesting that a year 2 be considered. We're only asking for 1 year of study so that we can then make some determination about what we should even recommend.
So just so I understand what you're saying, then, you're recommending the pilot program, as I see it, option 3? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and we're not calling it a pilot. We would
Okay.
prefer that it be called a year of study.
But we're looking at 2.5 teachers, right?
Correct.
ESL teachers,
Which would
which will
be-
now be part of the bargaining unit.
Well, no, what we are suggesting is that those 2.5 teachers be teachers on special assignment, which would not require us to include their replacements as permanent teachers. They would be long-term subs with 1 year, just a 1-year contract. And then at the end of the year, those 2.5 teachers can return to their classrooms. So we're not asking for an increase in the bargaining unit.
Okay, but the pilot program will cost the district $132,000, is that correct?
No, the year of study, and help me with this, Gail, if I'm not, right now, it currently costs the board $165,000.
20, right.
We are saying that $136,000 of the federal grant for class reduction
Right.
is what we're suggesting be used to pay for the teachers. So that would not be a new cost for the district. We're just doing some creative use of that money. What you are paying now is $165,000 for those 12 support staff. You have 15 support staff.
You're
at
gonna reduce it to 12,
We'll reduce it to 12.
okay.
And it would cost $132,000, so technically, really, it's a reduction of about $30,000 or $35,000. It costs the district $30,000 to $35,000 less to do this year of study.
So then this figure of $132,000 for piloting is not correct then?
That reflects the same monies that you're paying for the 12 support staff.
Okay, I got it.
That's all that
I
is.
understand, okay. That's basically all I have. I just,
We probably confused the issue by adding year 2.
well, no, I'm glad you did, because it could show how, it could show how this thing could escalate, and I think those of us who were here and took the beating for reading recovery, that's what happened with reading recovery. It did escalate. It started as a very simple program, and it got to be very expensive for
But it was
like 50 kids.
But it was paying $60,000
Yeah,
for
I
a
know.
teacher to tutor 1 child.
Well-
Where this is classroom size of what?
This, for the classroom teacher?
You're looking
No,
at
classroom size for these
Well, the
rooms.
teachers
looking
would
at
be
2.5.
responsible for about
10 to 12
25, no, you would have groups, several groups of 10 to 12 students, so that you might be seeing 4 groups a day.
So it could be 48 to 50 students that they would see.
Far different from the load
From the-
expected of the
right.
reading and recovery teachers.
Okay.
Very different.
Yeah.
48 in a year?
Yes.
That isn't different.
No, wait. They would be seeing 48 on their caseload, and you would hope that they would assimilate some of those students and then pick up new students. So it's not a
The
total,
groups of 10 to 12
can't tell you
How
what
many
the
would they
total
see a
would be.
day?
Private tutoring.
How many would they see a
We
day?
got 275 kids.
They
Well,
would,
different
they would
schools broken out
see,
by school.
what we're proposing would be approximately 4 to 5 groups, 45-minute segments. So you can have 4 to
10, so
5.
10 to
4
12 kids
5
in a group.
Yeah, 4 to 5 sections, 10 to 12 in each section. So that could be anywhere from 50 to 60 students
A day.
that they can see a day.
Covering comprehensive subjects.
Directly teaching the language acquisition skills.
With emphasis on English language acquisition, so that these beginner students who have very, very limited, if any, skills in the English language would have an opportunity to expedite their learning of the basics of the English language, following various theories of English language acquisition, where the teacher would take them through the pre-production stage, which is the silent phase of language, the early emergent stage, which is one-word responses in language, early fluency levels, where they would begin with their reading and writing, until eventually they would be at a near native fluency level for success in the content areas in their regular classrooms. We feel that by grouping the students in groups of 10 to 12 students, similar grade levels, like first and second graders together, similar English language proficiency levels, we could offer a more efficient, effective program of instruction for the large number of English language learners that we now have in the district, so that these students will succeed as quickly as possible within the regular curriculum that's offered. Now, in some of these situations, the same 10 to 12 students might be seen a couple of times a day, so that we can offer them more English language learning opportunities at that early stage of English language development than we are currently able to do. We'd have to look at the populations of the students in the school and group them the best we possibly could according to the numbers within the school that are both in similar grade levels and at similar levels of development in their English language skills. Again, the goal here is to move them through the acquisition of the basic English language skills as quickly and efficiently as possible, so that they can successfully participate in the activities of their regular classroom. Also, the teachers would be working with students of an intermediate level of fluency or proficiency in reading and writing. Those students might be seen in groups of 10 to 12 for maybe one 45-minute block a day. You would also have upper level students that might need help more in content area, and those students would be seen less time than the intermediate, and the intermediate, of course, seen less time than the beginners. But we do have a large number of beginning students in our lower grade levels, and we think we could improve the instruction given to them if we were able to group them and have teacher-delivered instruction at an early point for intervention to give them a good, strong foundation in the English language.
This would be a far more intense program than what we currently offer. Much more intense.
And you say these 2.5 teachers, they'll be on assignment, long-term subs, if you will.
The long-term subs would be their replacements.
Okay.
So these teachers.
So next
would-
year, you'd have to make a decision whether to put them in the bargaining unit or not,
We
for the
need to-
long-term subs.
The board would need to make a decision based on the recommendation we would bring you after we look at the year of study as to how we should proceed.
At this point in time, do you have any idea what you hope to, you must have some kind of an idea what you hope to bring forward next year? It's a recommendation. Have to have an idea what you're looking for,
We
specific
visited-
areas.
We visited 3 or 4 school districts in the nearby areas, Bucks County, I know we went to Delaware County, went to Montgomery County. And there is a variety of what's happening out there. We want to try this because we feel that a combination is really the best model. Many of the school districts have strictly teachers in the classrooms, and that's it. They don't have support people. We feel a combination is, and that's why we want to look at this. So if you were to ask us right now what our best guess is, we'd tell you this is our best guess, but we're not sure. And that's why we didn't want to bring a recommendation to the board to suggest that we do this on a long-term basis until we had a chance to really check to see if we are correct in our thinking.
Okay.
Any more questions this side, Mr. Kapinski?
First, I'd like to thank you for all the hard work you did to put this proposal together. I found my 12 questions, and every one of them in this proposal was answered, so I'm glad you guys did what you needed us to do. I think we're being pretty proactive. I will tell you that this is a tough issue for one reason only. It's never going to go away. This isn't reading recovery. This is an issue that if you look at the county demographics, and anybody can call the county and get the information over the next 10 years, they're projecting that the minorities will grow to 15% of the population of Montgomery County. So realistically, probably in the next 10 years, we're going to be talking about 1,000 students in this program. It's never going to go away. It's a fact of life. You know, it's no different than 10 years ago if somebody were to say to you, I want to spend $4 or $5 million over 5 years to put a new language in called computers. You're back in there again. It's the same situation. It's an issue that we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to get a program together that works. We're trying to do it in a manner to provide quality education for these kids. And it can't be forgotten that we are the government entitled program here. We're the entitlement. We're the ones that have to take care of these kids. The concentration of students at certain schools justifies them trying out the teacher idea. Also, you can't forget that the teachers will be in charge of supervision of the other aides. The issue that Pat raised, and it was a legitimate one, because we talked about the personnel issues here that revolved around this issue. And this is just an area that's going to grow and grow and grow and never go away. So if you're worried about making the first commitment, if you don't do it now, you'll be doing it next year. And it'll be bigger and more. And if we don't get a handle on what works so that we can try to do this in the most efficient way, we're making a mistake. So I would suggest that you look hard at this proposal. You know, we're feeling our way in the dark, folks. There's no schools that have a program that works. They all have different ways to treat it, different ways to deal with it. I really thank you guys. You did a lot of hard work to try to get this together and bring it forward. And I don't want to wait a year to review it. I told you before, I'd like to see the review in November. I'd like to see you guys come back in January and you start doing a serious hard look on what works.
Okay, Michelle?
My only comment I have is pretty much what Vince said. I think what he said there at the end was the most important thing. The pilot program, well, it's in there for a year. I think you gotta come back with a recommendation in the January timeframe. So what you gotta know we're gonna do next year, and you have that timeframe to work with it. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Betty, I'm impressed with what you brought back here for this one-year pilot program. Betty's, I know so much of the hard work was done by yourselves, and I appreciate Betty's delivery of all that information. But as much as this board likes seeing a savings, I'd like to see us, strive for a more altruistic reason to correct the ESL program. And it's because of what Vince said, they're here, and they're not going away, and there's going to be more of them. And as much as we talk about how good this is going to be for these kids, we can't avoid the obvious, which is the good impact or the fair impact it's going to have on the regular classrooms when these children are pulled to get what they need, then our kids get what they need because you don't have a regular ed teacher doing this. And I remember being in York Avenue when we had an influx of Italian children that came into the Lansdale Borough area. And York Avenue stopped for the variety of Italian families that came in. None of the children could speak English. And they were just put in our classrooms and everything stopped around these kids. We helped them with everything, and it was fun, it was exciting. But that's a lot of downtime. The teacher trying to juggle both. So it helps regular ed kids, it helps these kids. As far as the employment piece, I'm the last person that wants to see us add to the bargaining unit. But on the other hand, if we keep taking these kids and providing them with part-timers, and we make that a practice, then they're not being treated like everybody else. Now we got a parity issue, in my opinion, and a fairness issue. Okay, they are not to be seen any differently. And so we don't just keep sending in part-timers to deal with them. They're entitled to as fair and as equal presentation of an education as possible. I don't want us to be guilty of that. I just want to mention, in Souderton, you have a guy running for school board, Dick Detweiler. He's the chairman of IVOC and chairs the program, the executive director, and he chairs the board there. IVOC is a critical group, probably the only group in the community outside of ESL at North Penn that does this sort of work. I believe this man's gonna get elected up there, and I think we're gonna see major changes in Souderton because of his influence. I'm glad we're ahead of Souderton in this area, and it's because of you folks. The insurance costs, if we're already paying insurance on somebody working 5.5 hours, then what's the difference in 7.5 hours other than the hourly rate? The insurance doesn't change, because isn't it that once you get 5.5, you get the insurance?
Well,
The
we're
health
not, we're
benefits?
not, right, we're not paying that right now.
We're not.
No, correct, we're not. The ESL support staff works 5 hours a day,
Okay.
so they do
But
not,
that's
And
what-
we're reducing the staff from 15 to 12.
To 12.
And using the 2 ESL teachers as supervisors and also workers and trainers.
But then their hours are going to increase, so they will flip over into getting benefits, correct?
Well, they're full-time schedule anyway, there's teachers on special assignments.
for year one, are you talking about the ESL support staff? Or-
Yes.
In year one, we did not change their hours. What we had proposed on this chart, as I said, was information that we were asked to give. So certainly the board can consider looking at an increase in the number of hours for the ESL support staff. There's, as I said, about $30,000 or $35,000 savings right now. And you might want to consider using that to offset some of the costs if you increase the hours.
Maybe not necessarily staff, but that cost, you might need stuff.
Well, one of the
Curriculum. You might need stuff for the
advantages,
students.
Gail, you haven't spoken, so why don't you speak?
One of the advantages of the Class Size Reduction Act is that it does come with some percentage of the grant to include materials, to
Stuff.
include stuff.
Right.
It includes staff development, professional development, which
Okay.
could also involve and would also involve the classroom teachers, as well as costs for what you're calling stuff for the program.
Okay, I just don't want to see us get hung up on shaving insurance benefits to make a program work. That, I believe in a carrot and a stick, but not health insurance. That's like, denying somebody air.
The only
That's
reason-
a basic.
The only reason we did not expand to 5.5 hours
Right.
or to 7
All
was
right.
because we were trying to keep to the program we had.
Right.
And that's what we were working from.
While reducing the class size, which is, that's what this is all about, that's where your monies are being driven in that effort, this is real creative. You're telling me you have the rooms to spread out?
We believe we do. We would target, we would select 2 schools. Right now, there are 4 buildings that have the highest concentration of ESL
Of these
students.
children, right.
Yes. So our proposal would be to select 2 of those schools, and we'd look at the 2 that would have the space.
Do they have room without taking away the art and the music
We
and going through that wall?
believe they do. We need to explore that, but we think at this point they may.
Because that's real essential, right from the get-go, is the room. And the last thing, can this idea be expanded, just an idea, just to throw out in part of your research, as a potential charter school idea? That when these people are putting in, I know Souderton is putting in for a charter school, it has to have a specialty, would this not qualify? Part-time charter school for specifically this, and then come back half a day like our VOTEC kids do? They go half a day VOTEC, half a day general ed, regular ed.
We'd have to explore that. I'm not sure of what requisitions there are for a charter school. There are some districts that have something called a newcomer center.
Okay.
We'd have to see what comprises a newcomer center and whether something like that would be appropriate for our population.
We
We'd
have
have
the
to perhaps
numbers.
talk to Souderton and see what it is that they're considering for this charter school that you're referring to. We'd be happy to look into that as we're studying, what best meets the needs of our district, because we do have logistics that are different from all others.
Well, the
13
money's out there, and I know there's special parameters. This is a special group, they might qualify, and,
It's something we can certainly
Right.
look into. Sure.
okay, down
We
this
like
end.
being creative.
Bill?
Yes, thank you. I think I agree with most of what has been said. But I think we have to start treating ESL as a real subject, because it's a real issue and it's like it's been said, there's an awful lot of kids, and it's only going to get to be more children with the problem. And I think the better we approach it, the better we get these kids educated, the faster we get them out of the ESL into the regular education. We, in turn, can slow down the rate of increase because they're spending less time. If we do it in a more concentrated way, I'd also like to see us look into doing it in the summer, where we're doing regular reading for first and second grade students, ESL for the kids that need it, and then thereby when they get to school in September, they're on board with everybody else. But I think it has to be treated seriously, and I do appreciate all the work that you all have done here. I know, Lanny, you've been doing it for many years, and we owe you something. We gotta do something. How many times can you come and do these projects and we just ignore it? But it is a good idea, and I like the idea that it's a one-year program. We're just gonna look at it for a year. And I think we ought to go ahead with it, and I think it can be a benefit to all of us. Thank you.
Vicki?
With this pilot program, will it be a voluntary opt-in for those schools that have been chosen to be the experimental student body for this first year?
We have already spoken to principals, but certainly we would speak with principals, and we want it to be in a building where it would be accepted.
I don't know, could we legally require a student to leave his mainstream classroom into, a special program?
What we learned in some of the other districts, and as I said, they do things in a variety of ways. One district, for example, if you're an ESL student, you are assigned to the one school in the district, or there were maybe two schools in the district that have the ESL program. And you're in that school from kindergarten through 6th grade.
Are they
5th grade.
mainstream though, or are they
They
segregated?
have a similar type program with 45 minutes, and then they're mainstream. But my point is, they do not go to their neighborhood school. They're bused to a totally different school, and they can't even return to their neighborhood school before 5th grade. They're there for the entire elementary school. Doesn't matter whether they learn the language or not. And parents who don't want their children to go to that school don't get the service. So that's how that district approaches it. We didn't think that was a way we wanted to go. So
I don't
in answer
believe
to
there's a common, I don't think you have a common factor as you might have with a specific handicap or special ed situation. I mean, each of these children have different levels of ability, and certainly the fact that they don't understand our English doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't great learners.
I think in answer to your question, parents certainly can always opt out of a program.
Will they be able to opt out of this?
They can opt out, sure. And
Okay.
there are some parents, few that we learned in the other districts, there were some parents who were adamant. They did not want their students in an ESL program. They felt that they would either provide instruction on their own or some type of exposure to the language. They felt they wanted their child to sit in a regular ed classroom, and that was their choice. So we certainly wouldn't force anyone to be involved in
Here,
this
would they
program.
still be able to maintain the services?
The support service.
The
We
support
would give them the
services
support
of
service.
those
Mhm.
classes. My understanding then, you're proposing that they have their regular classroom placement.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
So there will be a certified teacher that they are a part of this class of 20
Correct.
students in that regular classroom.
Correct.
Then they will have another certified teacher that they will go to see for
45 minutes.
45 minutes a day. So now we have 2 certified staff on that student's
Correct.
time.
It's-
Then they will also have the 12 support staff that's paid on the hourly basis?
No,
Or they
no.
will be removed from
Those
that?
support staff personnel would be working with grades 3 to 6.
They will not be a part of
No.
those students? Okay. I'm just trying to get a picture of how they're going to flow from here. Neil, the 136,500 that's here, the teachers will have a 7.5-hour day, but unlike the others, what is their student teaching time? Because I know our certified teachers have union restrictions that'll be applying to these teachers since they're gonna be on union pay scales.
It's the
and
same
union
as,
scale and everything within the bargaining
it's
unit.
the same as a regular classroom teacher.
So they would teach for 5 periods?
Well, at the elementary level, we don't teach by periods.
No, I
So-
know, but it generally, they fought for wherever they can. We get the specials, right? The gym and the
Well,
health and.
we certainly don't think that they should have 7 sections, but
Right.
because we also want them to have time to work with regular ed classroom teachers to bring those teacher skills, you know, to where they need to be to work with the ESL students when they return to the classroom. So there's staff development involved, there is monitoring of the student progress involved, there's record keeping, there's.
IEPs?
No,
No.
No, they're not
Or
IEPs, but,
IWPPs or something similar?
well, we would hope that we want to do some type of record keeping, because we think that's important.
Well, the bottom line is they'll be on a 7.5-hour day, but their teaching time will probably be somewhere around 5.5 hours.
Same as a regular classroom teacher,
So we're now
yes.
back to the 5.5 hours, but at the 136.5 for 2.5. I come up with 12.5 hours a day average on that, compared to the 132,000 that provides 60 hours of student teaching time. 12 support staff now provide 5 hours a day
Mhm.
to
But what-
full X number of students. How many?
But because the ESL staff are not considered teachers, some are certified, some are not. And
Right.
so.
But they're not teachers. I know our support.
Right, and they are not expected to teach, so they don't work with 12 students at a time.
Oh.
They work on one-on-one, they might work with 3 students at a time, very small groups. So you're really maximizing these hours. I think if you multiplied it over the week, you probably would see, I would guess, more students being seen by these 2.5 teachers than you would by the 12, possibly by the 12 people, or at least similar numbers.
They may be, I guess, Betty, my concern is that I've listened for about 6 years to some of the concerns that have come up regarding the ESL student body. Those people that have moved into our community and how we went from the aides to the tutoring and et cetera. And as I sat and listened to what you say is going to be happening, we're actually, right now at least, the main issue has been that it's grown to where a tutor or an aide is seeing 4 students instead of maybe 2 as they were originally scheduled to. That as the population built, we didn't necessarily add more tutors to keep that one-on-one to where it should be. Now we're talking about we're gonna pay someone to be on scale, so they're definitely on the salary schedule and under all the agreements of the bargaining unit, but they'll be in classes of 10 students. So that to me is not smaller classes than what they have under the tutoring system. It's larger groups. And I wonder how it will work with all these different languages that we do have amongst these students, how you can possibly bring together an age group of general academic level as well as a common language proficiency and the grade level, and how this is addressing the problem of having more one-on-one teaching time, support time, while allowing them to move forward and advance through the mainstreaming component of their classroom.
If I can jump in for just a second. I think if you would look at the 3rd page in this packet, where we delineated the job responsibilities, on that page it delineates the job responsibilities of the ESL teacher, followed by, on the next page, the responsibilities of the ESL support personnel. When we put this packet together.
The one that's in your board tonight's agenda.
Oh, okay.
I think, Vicki,
You know, my concern is knowing how these students, first, they're transitory. Secondly, we don't usually keep them in the program that long, at least we try not to. I think 3 years is really for your most needy of your students, and fluency is your objective to move them out. And most times, a lot of these students would move from an ESL program perhaps within 3 months of support.
I don't think
How are
it's,
we gonna
I
move
don't think
them?
it's quite that quick. I think.
Basically, if I can interrupt for a moment, when we're talking about language development, you're talking about 2 areas of language development. One's referred to as BICS, or Basic Interpersonal Communicational Skills. That you might recognize as survival English, or could be the language spoken by, let's say, a 5-year-old. The average time for a non-language speaker to learn the BICS, the Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills of a second language, is 1 to 2 years. Now, if you want to look at the CALPS, which is another term in language acquisition, that refers to cognitive academic language proficiency, which would be the language needed to succeed in a science class, a social studies class, math area, or whatever. That can take from 4 to 7 years. So what we're trying to target here is group instruction of non-English speakers to accelerate their basic language, basic English language acquisition, so that we can move forward with their reading and writing skills for success in content area. And basically, we might occasionally see a student who picks up the English in 3 months. But that person has probably been studying English in another place before coming to North Penn. When the students come into the district, they are all assessed with their level of English proficiency. And the key tool used is a language assessment scales test. It's put out by CTB McGraw-Hill. It's used in many states for this purpose. And that test helps us to evaluate whether the student is a non-English speaker, limited English speaker, proficient English speaker. From there, we place these students, and again, we have a large number of non-English speakers. We have an English as a second language program where we have recommended group instruction for students because it is recommended that the students will learn more rapidly interacting within a group than they will with one-on-one instruction. And here in the North Penn School District, with the diverse population of different languages that we have, believe it or not, the students, through that need to communicate in English, do learn to speak English together. We just could not possibly have bilingual programs where we were working one-on-one with all the 27 or more languages that are represented here in this district.
Well, that's exactly why I find it odd for us, because although you may say 40 students, I mean, they're spread between 2 grades and 2 classrooms, so you may be talking 20 per grade, but there may be 8 or 9 languages amongst those 20 students.
Right.
And since we can't establish bilingual classes so that the teacher can be given them in that language, it's hard for me to comprehend where the modeling's going to come into play while they're in there, or how that one-on-one attention can be given for that English translation. But
I think, Vicki, that the key difference is we're talking about direct instruction being provided by teachers who are certified to do that. The ESL support staff technically cannot give direct instruction. They support, they reinforce, but they're not to give direct instruction. And we're suggesting, and where we saw this model, where we saw 10 to 15 students in a classroom with a certified teacher, and they were a variety of languages and they were a variety of ages, it worked. It worked. So that's why we're suggesting that intensive program where these teachers will be trained to work with the ESL population, we think that we will be able to be successful in this combination model.
I know a few years ago, there was an issue, some of us on the board supported moving those ESL staff up to a higher rate per hour, and there was quite a bit of resistance within the administration of making that shift, because it would throw out of sync the math aids and et cetera. And I've known for many years that the ESL, of course, staff would love to be a part of the bargaining unit and become ESL teachers, and
we're not touching that. That wasn't part of our.
Well, the pilot basically is, you're talking using a certified teacher to instruct the students, and there is no certification for ESL.
That's right, there is no certification.
No, there is no state certification, that's correct. They're certified regular ed teachers, but what we're suggesting is they would be teachers who would be, that part of the monies that we have available to us through the federal grant would enable us to offer professional development for those teachers
But if you consider that your students, your teachers, your 2.5 ESL teachers, they may be 7.5 hour day, they're providing about 5.5 hours per day instruction. So it costs 100.
But-
5.5 hours.
Five.
Okay, but-
Five.
What's 5?
5 for the ESL support aides and 7, a full day for the 2 teachers.
But Vicki, I think you're looking at the teacher's day as the number of classes. We're also suggesting to you that the teacher would be doing far above and beyond. If you look at the plan, there are many responsibilities that we're asking for these ESL
I'm
teachers
sure
to do.
there are. We're looking, I've known.
It's a lot more.
What I've heard so much about from our minority communities was how we've spent less one-on-one time with the students in support of the mainstream classroom. I haven't heard anything to incline that they would like to have them removed from the mainstream classroom, or that it was a matter of clustering them into groups of 10 or so. And I'm just concerned that this program is going to be
Can I jump in a minute?
beneficial.
We did a lot of research on this, and I need to trust the people and the professionals who put the recommendation together. And this is why we're gonna come back to you in November, we're gonna come back in January, and we're gonna answer the questions. We could surmise how it might go all night long, but they've done a lot of work. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, when I assign them to this, then I trust what they're gonna come back with, and I think they're closest to the issues.
Produce or die, right?
It's
a new program, it's
Well, I am
produce or die.
concerned because we are using children. It's not as though this is a year of study where the administration is going out and looking at other
But they
programs.
spent more
that
than
are
a year
existing.
studying this.
But we do have to invest
Don't
children in
lose
this.
sight that this is
So I wanna
improving
be
the
careful.
existing program that we
Right.
have.
It-
It's not,
yeah,
it's not devaluing it at all, it's improving it. We're
It's-
trying to find a way
Vicki,
to do it
Vicki,
better.
these students Vicki, these students we're talking about will get more
Right.
instructional time than they get right now with the current model. They will get more consistent instructional time.
In larger groups.
All righty, little housekeeping, Mr. Schilling.
I'm all right.
Do
I
you
just
need
wanna
insulin?
say,
Do you need a
I
blizzard
have-
from Dairy Queen? What do you need?
No, fine. I just want to thank you, all you folks involved in here. This is, I believe this is a very good program. It really sounds good, and I really believe it will work out very well. I was concerned regarding the parents' involvement, whether it's mandatory or not. Obviously, that question was answered, but I thank you all in regards to this, and I look forward to its being implemented in the district, excuse me. Thank you.
Okay, see, and you thought you were coming to a roast, right, ladies? See, things get better, things get better. All righty. Okay, ladies, thank you very much. Feel free to stay to listen to us on the budget. Okay, doctor, keep going.
Just a quick informational item that's under technology purchases. We're right now organizing the Phase 2 technology purchase orders. We know the budget hasn't been approved yet, but we want to be ready for when the budget is approved, so we'll be bringing those forward, hopefully, as part of the action meeting in June, after the budget is approved. Yes.
Last week, the E-rate was approved for full funding this year. And I left a message for Debbie Klein to make sure that she applied for full funding. Did she?
I'll
Or she
ask
waiting
her.
for-
I
She
will
actually
ask
waiting
her.
for us to approve this budget before she applies?
I doubt it.
Because the deadline's July 1st. And
I'm sure she has, but I will follow up
And I'm sure at least 20 or
on
30 people have already applied. Make sure you follow up on it.
I will.
Because it'd be a shame to miss out on all the money since we got burned last year.
I imagine that's one of the things she does at 2 AM in the morning when she's sending me email. So, but I will double check, make
Yeah, I
sure
gotta
she
do
did.
that.
Budget?
Next item's budget, and I am going to be filling in for Frank, who is not here this evening. But before I... Huh? He's at Walt Disney World? That's where the budget belongs. Just let me do a couple other items before I get to the budget item, which hopefully will be fairly rapid. I want to bring to this august body a couple of things that happened at the committee meeting of Community Relations and Policy. One is that we've agreed to form a committee under the leadership of Betty Robinson, who will study the base program and come back with a recommendation, or will come back with what it takes to do it and so forth and so on. Other thing that came up in that meeting is there's two policies, or three policies related to Educational Services Committee that we want to make some modifications to, and we'll have the first reading on those in the June meeting. They're very minor in change, they're more to do with the law. And that was about the main essence of the meeting that was covered. There was some discussion given to us about school safety, and that program is continuing, and school safety is proceeding as it always has, and they're still working on that. Now on to finance. One of the items that in your handout tonight was draft of there was 3 banks that came in and gave a presentation on services they could provide. As you know, we're having some problem with Union National. Union National?
First Union.
First Union. We're having some problems with First Union before they changed their name. And so we had 3 other banks come in and make a presentation to us. And what you have here is a copy or a summary of some of the items they brought forward and what they can provide for us. The Finance Committee will be looking at this further. No action will be taking place in June. Now, I'd like to move on to the budget. The budget and the paperwork that you have handed out to you tonight, I had them read through the budget a little bit in a format where I could better get my hands around it to understand it. And the budget that's laid out here for you tonight is a budget based upon a reduction in the millage from 5.74 to 5.5585. But I want to call your attention to the first budget summary page. And in that summary page, you'll notice the budget for 98 and 99, which was for $117,469,000. Within that budget was a budgetary reserve of $1,500,000. In the next column, the actual budget for this current year is $112,227,000, which does not have the budgetary reserve in it because it was not used, but the actual dollars that were used was $112,227,000. So when you look at the budget for 99-2000, the $120,360,149 as recommended by the administration has included with it the $1,500,000. So if you're looking budget to budget, you have to add the 100. You got to take the 1,000,005 out compared to that 12, or add the 1.5 back into 112. So the difference so 112 is 113. So it's about $7 million increase from budget of last year to this year. I also, and as you run down the numbers to the bottom of the page, you see that the budget as proposed has, not only does it have the budgetary reserve of $1.5 million, which is a board policy, we also have a fund balance of $5,914,000 based upon this budget. I want to come back to that, but let me just say what else is in this packet. I also asked them to look at each one of the items in the budget and give a breakdown on the salary. On the dollars that are in those items, to give you kind of a breakdown where those dollars are being spent in those items through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 900 funds. And the last item that I asked them to attach was the where we were when we started in April of '99, May of '99, and how we proceeded, and where we're at the budget here tonight, a proposed budget of $120,360,000, which includes the $1.5 million reserve and the budgetary reserve and the $5.9 million fund balance. Where the board has to make decisions, of course, are on in the budgetary items and the 1 through 900 items. They've been discussed in detail, a number of items, but you can take a look at those again. And if there are any areas within those items that you would like the administration to make further cuts or adjustments, then you got to be specific on where you would like to have that done. And the other area I think the board has to look at is the budgetary, the total amount of dollars that we're carrying over as, whether we call it fund balance or budgetary reserve. Right now, we have 5.9 and 1.5, that's 9 and 5 is 14, that's 5, 6, 7. That's close to $7,500,000 as a carryover. Now, one of the things that we may say that's too much, and maybe we should reduce that and reduce the budget accordingly and by that amount. The other thing that we keep in mind, it was brought up in other discussion, is that if the budget, as based on past history, if the costs for operating the school district is increasing in the area of $7 million per year, then that means that with the fund balance of the numbers that are here now, it would mean that the increase to the taxpayers of the budget in the next year would be less than or nothing. But if we reduce that budgetary reserve fund, then of course, depending on what the income is for next year and how things fall, there could be a possible increase in the millage in the ensuing year. Those are only thoughts to keep in mind. So I wanted to give you a summary overview of what this piece of paper is and where we are right now with the $7 million plus budget increase over last year. I turn it over to you, Madam President.
Okay, board questions to the left. Mr. Murphy?
Mr. Sowers, on the sheet we have tonight, you're showing 98.99. The actual was 112,227, 317. And you're saying that the budget, did you take that out, or was that not in the budget last year? I thought it was in last year's budget. Well, the budgetary reserve for 98.99. I don't know what that zero figure means.
Well, the $1,500,000 in the budget, the $1,500,000 was in there.
Yeah.
For $117 million. The actual, they did not use the budgetary reserve, so he took it out. So the actual money spent was $112 million.
Oh, okay.
So the budgetary reserve was zero.
That's superfluous to me then, because it hasn't changed, and we're still planning to spend $112 million.
Right.
And you tax for $117. I would also, not you, I would also like to go to,
He feels
Where's the
better.
rest of it, Jim?
He feels much better.
page 5 of the May 4th draft. Do you have that? That's the part with the summary of revenue and real estate.
Yeah.
Last year, the board majority passed a 15.7408 mil tax increase. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I reading that correct? And you're projecting this year a 15.5585 mil increase.
Yes.
It's not an increase, Pat, is it?
It is a levy. It's a tax increase. It
It's not a
is.
tax increase, is what it is.
No, it's the total amount, it's not.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, all right. I guess the problem I'm having, Jim, is I keep hearing about this $1 million give back, and I look at a situation where I see it was 123 million, and now we're saying they can only spend, they want to spend 120 million. Where did the $3 million reduction, is that what was attached to the blue sheet that we got?
It's included in the
Well,
last.
I'm looking at the May 25th
It was
finance
$3 million.
meeting. We had
The
a,
$3 million from
Yeah,
the
where-
last presentation represents a reduction in the salary categories of approximately $1.7 million.
okay,
Fringe benefits of $711,000,
Okay.
and refund of prior year receipts of $700,000 for a grand total reductions of approximately
$3.15.
Yes, sir.
okay.
Now, if I could just
Okay.
continue with your other point, 15.7408 versus 15.5585.
Right.
Approximately a 1.2% decrease in the millage rate.
Okay.
For the local tax base.
But does that that comes out to $1 million?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there will still be there will still be a tax increase this year if you pass this 120, if the board passes this $120 million budget.
No, it's a reduction.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I see what you're saying. I got you, I got you. Right, okay. I guess I'm getting confused is because up until the last meeting, we kept hearing how we needed $123 million in expenditures, and then at the last finance meeting, it would drop to 120.
Well, I can explain part of that. That was.
Well, no, and then you did, I did get
But that
some
was part of the
explanation.
continued work of Jim and the finance office at looking, especially at our salaries. We knew that we
Right.
didn't have a good handle on
Okay.
that.
Right.
And it took us that time to get there.
Right. I guess there's a lot of questions, and, I've been to all the meetings, and, last year I was upset with the budget that was passed, and I said it wasn't necessary, and it looks like what we said was true. But I still have a problem with, Don, you said a $7 million increase. He's showing $8.1 million increase in spending.
Well, the difference between, if you take the 1.5 million out, which is,
Yeah.
and compare it to the 112, which you gotta make a comparison to. So
Right.
you take if you take the 1.5 out, then it makes the actual increase is 6,632,000.
Oh, okay. But the 1.5 is part of the budget. I mean, we never, in the 3 years I've been here, we've never taken the budget reserve out of the budget.
No, but you gotta look, hey, you gotta make them equal.
All right. Well.
You gotta put the 1.5 back into the actual.
Okay. All I'm saying is, though, you're asking now for $120,360,000, and we spent plan to spend $112,227,000. That's $8 million. And I thought it was bad enough last year when we had a $5 million windfall, and now that's gone, and there's another $3 million in expenditures being asked. The only place I can see that we could possibly give anything back to the taxpayers now, because you're showing that you need, out of the 11.4 million in fund balance, you need 5.4 million to fund this budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that would leave a fund balance of 5.9. It's very patriotic to sit here and say that we could take another 3 million out of that and reduce our fund balance and give it back to the taxpayer, which is fine. I personally don't feel it's enough. And secondly, unless you reduce expenditures, those same expenditures are going to be back next year, and you're going to have to go back and hit the taxpayer to fund them. So I just don't think it's the right way to go. And Don, you mentioned that you had them list these different categories. If we wanted to see
I told them
further reductions, it would be us to say where they are or what we want.
Well, you gotta give them some direction.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because all the committee meetings, we didn't give a whole lot of direction. You're just talking about general areas like property, or you want line
Well,
items?
there's
You want
detail in
line
some of these.
items.
Well, give them some
Okay.
general idea where to look. I mean,
Okay. I don't, and I said this before, I don't know that that's the board's job to go line by line and item by item. I think it is the board's responsibility, and particularly the finance committee's responsibility, to set direction, which I don't know that we did a very good job with that. We mentioned the $118 million figure. I know one meeting, Mrs. Mengel mentioned 117. But the number really hasn't changed a whole lot. As I say, the only place I can see any kind of a tax relief would be in the fund balance. And if you reduce that too much, it's going to come back next year, and there's going to have to be a sizable increase next year. So, as I said, there's a lot of things I could say, but I've lived with these books and been through the meetings, and it's just, I don't think that, I think the budget's going to be 120 million, and that's what it's going to be. And I thank you for your time.
Any questions left?
Yes, I would just like to say, Dr. Hassler, to you and your staff, I appreciate all the minute looking at the budget, the line items that you've done this budget year, the process. I know that how you've gone to each line, and I just appreciate that clean sweep and just cleaning up the way you did. So if that's where the numbers fall, that's where they fall. Fine, thank you.
Mr. Rossi?
I agree with Pat. I still think there's some more refinement. you have another week and a half. If we need to make a special meeting at the end of June to pass this thing, it's not unheard of. We've done it in the past. I mean, I really think everybody should take a hard look at their calendar tonight.
Right.
Should that come forward, if there isn't support for it as it is. I won't support it the way it is until we look at it again and possibly do some further refinements. Betty's about to possibly add a few $1,000s if we make some other recommendations to change your program. I hope that there is no other surprises coming forward from the administration that we're not aware of. Anybody want to answer that?
There's none coming forward.
That he knows
Last
about.
minute, yeah.
Except
last
buying
minute
buses
ideas.
tomorrow, right?
I feel, and I'll tell you, I had this conversation with Pat, and I think Pat and I pretty much agreed on this. You know, I think the $1 million give back is fair. I'll tell you why. I didn't think it was necessary next year. We were led to believe that it was, and that was wrong, and it shouldn't have happened. And we have an opportunity to make that right this year by giving it back. I thought that we were going to have a serious discussion on what we consider to be a fair fund balance. I understand how the administration and Jim especially has to operate out of it and operate with it. I don't feel comfortable taxing for a budget reserve, and if we can pay for that out of our fund balance to reduce that fund balance, that's a nice idea too. I just don't see taxing them twice for something when we already have it in our hands. The issue of how much we're going to have the following year, every year is different. Our needs change constantly. Our tax base will change again next year. I don't feel like that's fair that you should look ahead 2 or 3 years and say, well, what we're doing today could possibly hurt 2 or 3 years from now. That's a big if right now. We have to deal with what we know today and what we're going to know at least for tomorrow. I just don't feel comfortable the way it is. I hope you guys can refine it a little bit more. And as I said before, I like the idea of the $1 million give back. We took it when we didn't have to because we were told we had to. We didn't. We proved that, and I think we should give that back. They deserve it. It's their money. I don't like the idea, and I heard somebody get up and say we should hang on to it for a year because you might come back and try to take it next year. It's my money. I'd like to spend it for a year if I have to give it back to you. I think a lot of people feel the same way. Give it back to them. Other than that, I went through a lot of the increases. I took out technology to see what the numbers would be. I took out the budget reserves. My question are, where's the refinancing savings, Jim, right now? Where's it going to be? In your budget picture here, it's going to be in a separate capital projects account?
It's going to be the 1999 Capital Projects Fund, and then as a consequence of a question from Vicki, we prioritized Arthur Wood's capital projects list, and that was incorporated in the discussions with Dolphin and Bradbury, and you will see that detailed list as well as an itemized statement at settlements June 17th. Perhaps at that evening's board meeting, you'll have a copy of the settlement sheet, and you may be able to have an addendum to the agenda to authorize the 4 projects, and I do have a
Well, wait a minute, before we do that, support services has to meet to discuss how we're gonna be doing that, because that's Mr. Schilling's responsibility to lead that charge, and I know you're in a hurry to try to put that into that document. But, you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We haven't approved anything on that list. I mean, I know what we want the money for.
You have,
I mean, I'm not.
you have more than enough checks and balances from June 17th moving forward. Arthur and I met, and we did have an initial discussion on where we thought the priorities would be, but that's a fair statement.
And that hasn't happened to the board, because I know that Art wants to talk about what's more important right now that we can do. And I know that's coming forward, and I'm not gonna say that we're gonna disagree with what you guys are doing, but it's our decision, not yours, and we're the guys that have to account for it.
And the answer, the quick answer is it's 1999 Capital Projects Fund, the expenditures of which will be deliberated at the board table.
All right. This year, did you put on our ledgers the Keenest Road revenue?
Yes, sir.
Did we
That's
do
in
that
the
last year?
other.
Was that part of the fund balance
That's
rollover?
part of the projections, and
Yeah.
it's in the other revenue category. It's incorporated in the $705,000 number.
All right.
$625 per year, and there's not an amortization schedule, but a receipt schedule from Dolphin and Bradbury stating the obvious.
I'd like to reiterate what Pat said. I don't feel that it's the board's job to go line to line, pull out a pen, and tell you what's important to you. That's the administration's job to make those type of recommendations and to make those type of decisions before they come to us. They know what's important. I hope that you guys can look at it again and tighten this thing up more, and we'll go from there. I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but I'm telling you now, I'm free towards the end of the month. You guys better pick a couple of days. Because I don't see this thing flying next week.
I just base it on the fact that, you know, we were told last year with 117 million was a drop-dead figure, and Vince, you talk about 1 million, it's 5. 112 and 117 is a $5 million
Well,
windfall.
think about it, Pat, one person did drop dead for doing it. You know, just, you know, it's not like it wasn't true. Mr. Hale? Okay. It just, I agree with Vince. Before Frank left for La Laville, he said that he felt that he could take 2-3 million more out of this. And I remember, and Vicki will account, I remember an executive session over at North Penn where tables were about to flip and there was about to be a fist fight because I said the squirrels know where the nuts are.
Yeah.
So the board should not be taking the pen and striking categories. It's going to have to be the administration.
Well, what Frank was talking was, we went 123 million.
Yeah.
No,
No, he was
No,
talking
before he
about
left,
No, he
between
wasn't.
2 to
he
3
said about
million.
119, he said back down to $118 million.
That's right.
No, he also
Before
said.
he left.
He said that he intended to bring 2 to 3 million back to the taxpayers. This budget's gone from 123 to 120, but it's still only 1 million going back in the.
That's right.
In the reduced millage,
Right.
so.
Right.
So the last discussion I had with him, and that was the night before he left, he's looking at about 118 million
That's
and
right.
looking at giving back 2 more for a total of 3 million back. And I thought maybe there could be enough votes for that. I know now, just from what I've already heard around the table and conversations I've already had on my own with various board members, there isn't going to be enough to put this on the agenda for next Thursday. And, you know, I wouldn't want to do it anyway without Frank. He has to come back and eat his budget.
It's
Good
not
for
his-
you.
it's not
Because
his-
you had
I
to
love
eat yours.
this.
So, anyway,
sure
that's
did.
where, and I think, again, you know, this is my money, and I think we're holding on to too much of the monies that were captured last year. And as one taxpayer out of like 90,000, I want my money back. Mr. Allen? You still here?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Mrs.?
That I'm listening to. One of the things that we had to account for last year was a total reassessment of the county. And there was some confusion, doubts as to what the revenues were going to be. But before that, we were always pretty sure that the revenues were going to be consistent as to what we projected. With the new assessment system in place, can we have that same level of surety that our projected revenues are going to be as close because of reassessments that are going on?
They're done.
Yes, the reassessment of 1198 by June, or the 99-2000 budget process, I would suggest the assessment appeals are dissipating, so we're not going to have the volume. And you are seeing an increase in the tax base from new construction on the commercial side as well as the residential side. And I believe Arthur Wood compiled the list of statistics for the redistricting committee on the residential side, and I have that information, and I've been able to extrapolate that into new revenues on an interim tax basis for 99-2000 and 01, which would then translate into current real estate taxes moving forward. So I think we can get our arms around revenue again.
Okay. If I can ask you to summarize in the terms that I'm going to put it, are you in other words, I want you to stamp what I'm saying, or tell me where I'm wrong. That the revenue projections for next year will only be increased by new construction on a bigger basis than what we were used to in the past. Is that it?
The revenue projections for 99-2000 for real estate tax reflects a 1.2% millage rate reduction for existing properties, and
Right.
it also reflects new revenue for new construction.
So you've already factored
Yes,
in
sir.
proposed new construction?
I've already factored in the very latest assessed valuations from the Montgomery County Board of Assessment. So
Okay.
that's in the map.
Jim,
So
didn't
don't
you,
ex-
Bill, excuse me, didn't you also We weren't at the meeting. Didn't you also say that with Merco, with all the construction going over there, that we go back in there?
That's going to be an interim.
And
That's
there's a
gonna be-
few other places that got breaks last year, but we'll be able to go back now because they have new projects?
And you're going to see significant interim tax
Okay.
collections in 99, 2000, and maybe a bigger bump in '01.
I'm sorry, Bill, but you weren't at that meeting, and that was very important.
And
It
Merck
came
is
out.
4% of your tax base overall, or 4% of $85
Right.
million.
Right.
My next, I guess, comment to board members is that if, there comes, to me, there comes a point where the administration has said, if you want to maintain everything you're doing, that this is what it's going to cost.
We were told that much.
All the things that we've done in the past, all the things that we've talked about this year and voted to do, there comes a point where that's what it's going to cost. And if we're saying, if we believe that we are at that point right now with this budget, then I believe it's our job to say, this is what we want you to change. Now, if we don't believe we're at that point, or what we would call a maintenance budget, it's a different issue. But there does come a point, I believe, it's our responsibility to say, we want to change what we've been doing and what we've approved to do in the past year. Do we want to raise class size? Do we want to let buses go longer? Do we want to, all kinds of things. If you want, when you're talking a couple of $1 million, there comes a point where you say, we have to take responsibility. And we have to say, this is what we will allow you to do. Now, are they at that point? Are we at that point? I don't know. But I don't think we can shirk our responsibility by saying, if the administration doesn't come to us with a smaller budget, they're not doing their job. If we're not giving them direction to change the standards, stop doing the technology program, everybody has their issue and what they think is important. Where do we want them to lower today's standards? That's my question, that's my comment. And if we're not there, then,
Okay.
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Bill, I also know that last year we were told we had to have $115 million just to maintain.
Yep, that's right.
Well, then you don't
And that
believe
was
we're there.
maintenance
Then you don't believe we're there. That's my point.
I also know that the most effective budget process we ever had was when this board established parameters, spending parameters, and then the administration established the spending priorities within them. And Dr. Bose came back after reviewing the budget and did bring forward those areas that had been previously proposed that perhaps could be reduced.
Right.
And it moved from there, but actually to address it, I will say that we had the benefit at the last Finance Committee meeting of getting this as expenditure and revenue summary. I don't know if all of you got it, because I got it at the Finance meeting. And I would hope it'd be available for everyone that's here or has been attending budget meetings. The district itself basically acknowledged that in the $123 million budget, there was $1.2 million put in the salaries. And over and above what they expected to spend. They also acknowledged that under other objects, there was a $2.2 million worth of spending designated in the budget that they didn't really expect to spend. So it's money that we place in the expenditure columns of the budget, when in fact we believe it to be there in our cash fund balance at the end of the year.
That's right.
Now, is that the most direct and honest way to account for excess revenues? I think they're much better placed at the end, acknowledged as a fund balance. And it was also acknowledged that even though we passed the budget at 100 of one level of salaries back on May 12th or 13th, we since heard about $900,000 that's going to be reduced out of the net cost for our salaries because of retirees. But it was also acknowledged that the administration didn't feel that they should take that money out as expenses out of the budget. So I mean, someone's got to decide.
How much, I'm sorry, how much time, young man? That's it? Oh.
2 minutes. I think you'll be done by then, don't worry.
Thank you. You'll cut me off, right? No, but
We're gonna
basically,
try.
I believe we do
Try,
have an
Rebecca.
obligation to give some direction, at least on what we expect back. If there's a majority of the board that wants to support a more significant return to the taxpayers than 1 million, well, let's say, what do we resolve to be a more reasonable figure, 2 million or 3? Do we want a balanced budget so that there is not a deficit going into next year? I would certainly hope so. If we're gonna pass a $120 million budget, then you need to end with $120 million in revenues. Otherwise, you didn't give the taxpayers back their money. You loaned it to them with high penalty and usury charges. So you've got to, we can establish those parameters. And if, we want to take a look at these numbers, just make them more realistic and acknowledge what's a fund balance right now for next year so that we can begin to work the math. But it's a little hard when I've got numbers coming through and they say, well, we budgeted 71.5 we budgeted 72.7, but we really only expect to use 71.5. How do you talk to people about this? Because the numbers in the budget aren't the real numbers that the
Those
administration.
numbers have been reduced.
Well,
The
you did-
1.2, we took out 1.7,
Right.
the 2.2 is 1.5 of it is budgetary reserve, and it's the other 700,000 that's been eliminated, so.
I saw that out
Those
of the,
dollars are.
out of the
and more are
1.2, you
gone.
took out 700,000 and
Well-
left the other 500,000 in excess funding in
No,
there.
it's 2.2 minus 700,000 leaves a budgetary reserve of 1.5.
I realize that.
We left that in.
But anyway, on the personnel salaries, Bob,
It went down from last time we met, $1.7 million. So that 1.2 that we weren't sure that we were accurate with,
right?
Jim's further work, he said, yes, that's too much, let's take it, we're taking it out, so
We
it's
reduced
gone.
the
Well, we've
budget
dropped-
as well as the actual
You've dropped the
projection.
3 million out of the expenditures and placed it at the fund balance, and you're still maintaining the $1 million for the return, which if I'm not mistaken, that's about the same amount of money that we actually regained from the growth in assessments. We'll get so basically, the million that we reduced the millage that you're setting here, 15.5585,
5585.
should produce for us the same amount of
Similar
revenues
revenue.
as we got last year.
Fair statement.
Okay, so we
Okay,
kind
are
of.
we gonna try and wrap this up, or should we go
Um,
another tape?
Can I suggest
There's
that we
not
just
enough
come to
support.
what we're looking for? And I looked at this budget, and in my review, I think a ballpark of 118.5 on your spending, and you can begin next year. You'd be able to begin next year with a balanced budget, at least for that spending level. You'd have
Well,
118.5
that's about
in
where I
revenue.
think, that's about where Frank is right now.
And I will-
John?
I appreciate all the work everyone has, Dr. Hass or staff involved in all this. I mean, it's a big task, but I do want to see it cut back. I really do. I really believe they can. I have faith that they continue to, make decisions. We're taking lower our budget, and, I'm confident they can do it.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.